Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, my name is Dave Scott. We had to have a little bit of a change in schedule. I screwed up. Teddy Hadiisko was going to join us to talk about the Dyatlov Pass. However, she is flying back home to Austria today, and I missed the email. So we've rescheduled her for September 7th. So tonight, I called up my buddy Steve Stockton from Among the Missing, and we're going to get into some weird stories tonight. And you guys can have a little vote tonight in the show. I'll put a poll up. Who has a better beard tonight? Myself or Steve Stockton? Dirty Filth will be here as well with another great piece of art. And all of you are here as well. We want to give a shout out to Ozzy Ange becoming our latest patron on the Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers Club. Yeah, on Patreon. So make sure you hit that on up. Race fans in the gold medal position. Laura Lobbs taking home the silver with Tim Mothman and his beard with a nice bronze tonight. Hi, Dino Bravo and Michael Morris. Jenny White Bear, we love you, my dear. Robert Lamoth, First Floor Audio, welcome to SOR Chat. And Simon the Dog Face, what's happening, buddy? Good to see you. All right, continuing on. The Debster, Toothbrush. Toothbrush will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Missouri Man, Raymond L., Kevin, Guy Calgary, Lee the Bee, Sandra Kincaid, thank you all for joining us tonight. Hello there, D. Cohen. And who else do we have in the chat room? Human Carl is here. Great old Human Carl. We love him around here. Thank you for your service, Human Carl. Sweet Donna Spencer, W. Decker, and Penman. Penman will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. Continuing on, hello there, Monica. Thank you for joining us. And who else do we have here? A Great Marine, Black Dragon, thank you for coming on in. Asteroid, good to see you. Noble Patrick, nice to have you with us tonight. And there's Dirty Filth in the chat room. Oh, well, there he is, number 18 in your program, starting at right wing from Stockholm, Sweden. Lars Jansson, there he is. He'll be signing autographs after the game, not the show. The game will be a little bit longer. D. Henderson, lovely to have you here. W. David Page, Paramarv, a great space traveler himself. And Luscious Jules, thank you for joining us. Ozzy, oi, oi to you. And who else do we have? Pink Volo, Jessica, thank you for coming on in. And who else is here? Michael Fontaine and Richard Elmore. Just another guy named Harry and Science Melinda. How are you both? Penny Van, Deer Slayer. How you guys doing? Hello there, Brown Dwarf and Pixie Lara. The Bulldog Philly, welcome back. And Polenia, my man. How you doing? Good to see you. Mary R. looking lovely tonight. And who else do we have in our chat room? Well, let's just scroll down. There's Bobby Farron and Silent Listen. Jack Clark, good to see you. Scott Rosen. Lieutenant Colombo, welcome to the chat room. And we got 1 minute left here. Nina Williams, thank you for coming on in. Michael Fontaine, good to have you again. Phil the Stalker and Kathleen Hughes. Nick Adkins, thank you for joining us. Hi, Susan Alloway and Donna C. Vanessa Love, how are you? Gong Show, good to see you. And we keep on scrolling. Keep on scrolling. There's the lovely and talented Amber Dawn Glover. Free your mind. And Hobbs, how are you? As we say hello to our good friend Dogface Simon for kicking off the Super Chat tonight. The Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you, Simon, for your love of the show. All right, continuing on. Where else are we here? I think we're caught up. Oh, there's Ozzy Anch. And Mr. Eon, the voice of the gods. How are you, my man? Good morning to you. And yeah, Abnormal Investigations, Sandra Kincaid. And we got 25. So there's Bill WD40 in the chat room, lubing us up for tonight's show because you always want to go in nice and smooth. Catheta Cat Gray, welcome to SOR chat. And Derek Galloway, good to see you. Jerry O'Brien. And here we go, everyone. Get your horns up. It is that time of the night to rock out with Mr. B. Here we go. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, at KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us, please, at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Power show of high strangers tonight from Among the Missing. Author, researcher, Steve Stockton will be with us to break down some weird and spooky stories. Then in hour number 3, well, we'll get a story from Steve because he kicks off hour number 3 each and every night here on the show. And then Robin McCrae will be back with the high strangeness of the cryptid report. All right, let's get right to it. Steve Stockton is the author of 3 books, Strange Things in the Woods, My Strange World, and National Parks Mysteries and Disappearances. Along with being a master of his writing domain, Steve is also the creator and host of the popular YouTube channel Among the Missing. It's been around for about 9 months, almost at 100,000 subscribers already. Steve has had many paranormal experiences in his life, including full-body apparitions, strange creatures, and water sprites. This man is experienced in knowing what we want to hear, what is going to creep us out, and that's why we love him around here. The man with the golden voice, Steve Stockton. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, my friend.
Hey, Dave. Thanks for having me back again. I appreciate that introduction. I wish I had a better show for you now.
Well,
How you been, brother?
I am good. I want to say congratulations on behalf of all of us at Spaced Out Radio to you and your new lovely bride. You have moved all the way to New England to have your heart put up on the pedestal by this young lady who has won you over and taken your bachelorhood away. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Nicole says hi.
Wonderful, wonderful. And hello to Nicole as well. Now, you know what, Steve? You have, since the past few months when we brought Among the Missing into hour number 3, I get a lot of compliments on your storytelling ability. You know, we all look for a niche in this field. How did you come across this niche on telling these high, strange, true stories?
Well, I don't think I found it so much as it found me, Dave, to be honest with you. It's just a natural thing. That's just the things that happened to me, the things that I experienced from early childhood. I didn't discover the paranormal. It discovered me. That's a true story.
How did it all get started for you?
Uh, I saw my first full body apparition when I was between 5 and 6 years old, and didn't scare me, didn't even bother me at all. And I was just like, huh, what's that? That's not supposed to happen. And it just sort of kicked things off on a lifelong quest into to looking at things and trying to find the pieces to the puzzle. And then the more pieces you find, and you come to discover that you don't have the box to even look at the picture to see what kind of puzzle you're putting together. And then you find out the cosmic joker has mixed several puzzles together, and some pieces just don't fit anywhere.
That is very true. Very true. Have you always been or had a love of telling stories, Steve?
Absolutely. Part of that's growing up down south. There's a huge oral tradition down there, storytelling. Grew up in East Tennessee, Appalachia, and it's popular pastime down there. Before television and really before radio, people would sit around the wood stove or the fireplace and tell stories. And I kind of carry on that tradition. In historic Jonesboro, Tennessee, you have the International Storytelling Convention once a year, and then they've got a center there, storytelling center there. So it's deep rooted in the South. As my granny used to say, there's a hate never holler, and I like finding those legends and retelling them. And a lot of it I owe to that same grandmother. She was a self-styled gypsy witch and a fortune teller, and taught me a lot of things. It used to scare the daylights out of me when I was little, but I appreciate the time that I spent with her. Wish I had another 13 years with her.
Why is it important to you, Steve, to get these legends and stories out from whether it's the Appalachia, whether it's Mount St. Helens, whether it's Mount Shasta, or somewhere along the ridges of New York? I mean, in upstate. I mean, you track down these amazing stories. What is the importance for you in
Well,
doing this?
it's just so the stories live on. I had an epiphany, same grandmother at her funeral. I was standing there viewing her in her coffin, and I thought about every tale she had told me, every uh, haunted house, every superstition, every good luck charm, and things like that. It just it was right there with her, and I just sort of took that mantle upon myself that I'm not going to let these stories die. I'm going to continue them on. My first book, Strange Things in the Woods, that's telling other people's stories that I've collected over the years. About 95% of the people in that volume have passed away now because I started collecting those in childhood. And so their stories and they live on through my words.
See, I look at it as we're at a point in life now where we're forgetting the past. The past is not a popular thing, whether it's among, youth today or the Gen Zers or even the Gen Xers, or don't even know what happened to Generation Y. But the point that I'm getting at here is, history has become an ugly thing for a lot of people. Yet every little town and every little nook and cranny around North America and the world has their own legend or ghost story or fictitious monster that has scared and bewitched the people of that town for decades. I mean, as populations grow or people die off and populations fade out and those towns become ghost towns, those legends are still of the area. For you, you know, why is it important to keep those legends going?
So again, it's just you don't want the stories to die out. It's almost like the telephone game or whatever. They get passed down. I've heard some of the same legends from different parts of the country, sometimes just different regions of the state, and it'll be told basically the same story but set in a different location. So I think even in those legends like that, I don't want to call them urban legends; they're rural legends, if there is such a thing. Maybe I just coined a term there, but it needs to be passed on. There's some inherent need in us to carry those stories on. A lot of them are cautionary tales, what to do, what not to do. And yeah, like I can go to just about any little town in the South. There's going to be a white lady. There's going to be a crybaby bridge. there's going to be, some kind of story that you have in just about every little place. And when I go into those new towns, the two things that I seek out, I'll find, like if there's a senior citizen center, that's a good place to go and story tell, and hold a little event, entertain those people. I've done that before. And, some people aren't paying any attention. It's something to do. Oh, there's no bingo tonight. We'll go listen to this guy. And they sit there and do their knitting or their crocheting. But then you have people that will hang around after that and say, that reminded me of a story that I heard when I was a little boy. And I love that. I love hearing other people's stories and versions of their stories. Again, our senior citizens, that's one of our greatest natural resources as far as legends and things like that. And again, those people, they're probably on the last leg on that train anyway, the last headed toward the last station. So get those stories while you can. And then the other end of that spectrum, I find out where the young people hang out, the skateboard park, the arcade, things like that. I don't know if kids go to arcades anymore, but skateboard parks, anywhere where young people gather. Young people will know where the haunted houses are, where the good parking spots are because they're scary or because there's a legend of something that happened there. So you get both ends of the spectrum like that. You get your finger on the pulse of any little town or community and find out what kind of weirdness, what kind of woo that goes on there. And every little town has got something.
Man, I didn't even think about seniors' houses and skate parks. Didn't even think about that. And yet that's so brilliant in order to find out the legends and everything. You know, for you growing up in the South, which was filled with stories, when you look around North America, whether it's in the West Coast here or whether it's in the East Coast or even up here where I am in Canada, do any of these types of stories surprise you anymore, whether it's around missing people or whether it's around urban legends? Is there any stories that have really kind of made you scratch your head and say, well, that's a new one to me?
Yeah, there's variants. I mean, there's several basic stories, like I said, that you hear, the white ladies and the crybaby bridges and things like that. But occasionally something will come along that's just like will turn everything on its end. A new take on an old legend or something like that. I haven't heard any that are completely new in a long time, but I've been doing this a long time too. So I don't want to say I've heard everything, but I've heard most of it. And that is the joy, to find something different. Occasionally, like here in New England, the Dover Demon, that was kind of a one-off. It was seen over a couple of nights back in the 70s by a few people and then never seen again. I love stories like that. I like to go to those places. Uh, More of a legend tripper than a researcher that way, just to be in the area where that happened and kind of bask in that ambience, not going there expecting anything to happen, but I just would like to go there and say, oh, this is the road where those kids saw the Dover Demon. I get a thrill out of stuff like that, the one-offs especially.
Steve, how many of these stories are real? How many of these urban legends of monsters or Mothmans or Dover demons or, trolls under bridges or headless horsemen are actually true and out there?
I think that, as with anything like that, there's a nugget of truth in there. The whole story may not be true. There's some embellishment, like I said, the telephone game. It gets passed around, and each person adds a little to it or changes things up. But I think there's a nugget of truth in that. The people that I've talked to, they saw something, they experienced something. Just like I know what I saw or felt or heard, and nobody would ever convince me otherwise. But some of the people, I mean, they have absolutely nothing to gain by telling me a whopping lie or a fish tale or whatever. And some of the older people, they're reticent to even talk about it for fear that people will think they're crazy. Things. I had one old guy, he's long since passed away, but some of his stories are in My Strange World. And he was telling me things that even his wife had never heard. She's like, you never told me about that. But once he saw that I had a genuine interest in it, I mean, at first, he had to like drag it out of him with a log chain. But once he opened up, he saw that I wasn't going to ridicule him or whatever. He was just a wealth of knowledge of that particular area. It was over in Fentress County, on the Cumberland Plateau area in Middle Tennessee, but it's just all kinds of stories from over there. And again, old people are one of our greatest natural resources for legends and stories and cautionary tales.
Okay, so I do believe there's a breadth of truth in a lot of these legends and stories out there, whether it's you know dogmen howling in the night or UFOs being spotted over certain areas. I was recently, in the last year told about this one area where each and every night the First Nations people go out there. They live in the mountains here, and their reserve is right near, through a river that's cutting through the mountains. And they say almost every night you can go watch the UFOs, almost like they're playing F1, Formula One race cars through these mountainsides, you
Yeah,
know, and along following the riverbanks. I mean, there's so many different stories out there that, I want to believe them all, Steve. I mean,
mhm.
there's always an ounce of truth there, isn't there?
Yeah, I believe so. And a lot of times, especially with stories like that, that's those people's normal. They don't think of it necessarily as supernatural or paranormal in the way that we do when we're researching a new area. This is what happens. We see this every time we go out there. Like I've gone over into North Carolina and seen the Brown Mountain Lights, which were just astounding. There's no explanation for it, but the people that live there in that area, it's just an everyday occurrence to them. It just is, and I think there's a beauty, almost a splendor, in that they just accept it. It is what it is. And then people like me come in there. It's like, wow, look at that! Look at these lights! Look at those! And they're like, man, we see it all the time. And I really appreciate that aspect of it too.
Do we take these types of stories for granted because they intrigue us so much? And with the online presence now of things like creepy pasta, we can get our spook on anywhere.
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of it's taken for granted. The creepy pastas, even a lot of those, there's a nugget of truth in there. And then if you believe in the concept of the tulpa, like the Native Americans and other people do, there are creepy pasta type creatures that have been spotted after they were originated on the internet. That if you put enough thought in there, that it's a thought form, a construct, an imprint, if you will, because so many people think about it and read these stories and things and put that energy out there. Again, I'm getting pretty far out into woo land there, but I believe that has a possibility of happening.
No, but it makes sense because, we think that, in many occasions that we, by putting that energy in there, have created these tulpa-like images of creatures, whether it's the Hat Man, kids going crazy on Bloody Mary in the mirror, or,
Mhm.
what's the latest one, the last few years, Siren Head.
Yeah,
I mean,
heard that one.
they're
A few
getting
years
more
ago, Slender Man. I mean,
Slender Man.
yeah, it came from the internet, but then there was, I think, two or three little girls that tried to sacrifice another little girl to Slender Man because they believed in it, and to them he was real. So what did they see? What did they experience? Where did it come from? Hey, Charles Kerr, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah. And Steve, I totally agree with you. Your biggest fascination is we have about 5 minutes to go here before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Steve Stockton from Among the Missing is our guest. Your biggest passion is one that I absolutely admire. It is of missing people, missing dog teams, missing boats, missing whatever it may be. You have found and created a real nugget of truth in your storytelling when it comes to this. And I think you need to be commended for it. I really do.
Thank you.
Because there's a lot of people who have gone missing that just need their stories being retold that might rekindle one memory, one
Exactly.
piece of evidence. So, how did you get started in the missing persons? I know you've talked a lot about the Dennis Martin case when
Yeah.
you were a child, but let's go beyond that. When you started doing missing people stories, what was Dennis Martin the motivation?
And that happened July, or I can't remember the exact date. It was Father's Day, 1969. I lived in the same town as Dennis. He was just a few months older than me, and it just really resonated with me. It's the first time I realized that, yeah, a kid just like me, about my age, could go missing and never show back up. I followed that case from day one, and somewhere I've got a couple of scrapbooks full of newspaper clippings from the area. And it was one of those things. It's a real head scratcher. Where'd he go? What happened to him? I mean, people don't literally just vanish, yet they do. And that's the fascinating thing to me. And like you said, this whole among the missing thing, it's to keep the names and the faces out there. And I often say, if I can bring one person home or give one family closure, that I'm doing what's been laid on my heart to do. And yeah, we get off into the strange stuff and the cryptids and the woo, because there's that supernatural element to a lot of these cases. Some of them are easily explained. It's being ill prepared, or death by misadventure, or a human predator, or an animal predator. But there's some of it that there's nothing other than a supernatural element to it. Is it Bigfoot? Is it UFOs? Is it portals? Is it Dogman? Is it some shadow government thing? The easy answer, yes. It's all those, and maybe none of those. But there are good arguments for any of those situations. That's the fascinating part about it. There's some
There are
disappearances that just don't make sense.
there are 10 or tens of thousands of people who vanish every year in the United States, never to be seen again without a trace. I mean, these are the stories that you are looking out for, whether they're happening in national parks or whether they're in someone's backyard. I mean, are there any, with 2 minutes to go here, are there any types of stories that just creep you out the most?
Some of the ones where the people go missing and then return, and they talk about some of the things they saw or heard, where it's almost like they slipped into a parallel universe where they were on the trail and then suddenly they weren't. They didn't recognize anything, or the woods got quiet, or they could see and hear people searching for them, but it was obvious that the searchers couldn't see and hear them. Again, there's something strange there that goes on that people experience. And people have heard what sounded like their loved ones calling for them out of a cave, when that loved one was actually maybe hundreds of miles away or even deceased. What's all that about? What's trying to lure people out there? And are some of these people have disappeared, ones that fell for it, ones that, I heard my Aunt Myrtle calling to me from a cave, so I wandered in there, and where'd they go?
Oh, you know what? For me, like the other night, we just played your story about little Riker in Montana who wandered off. And to me, it's the children ones that involve monsters. Now Riker's case in Montana didn't involve a monster, but I still think, Steve, there's something more nefarious about that story than just a little boy wandering off with his dog and ending up in an unlocked cabin a few miles away from home.
Yeah, sleeping in a lawnmower bag and talking to himself. And he had went several miles barefoot or in his little footy pajamas. And if you look at the feet of those pajamas when they're taking him out of there on a stretcher, they're dirty, but there's no way that kid walked for miles in the mud and rain and over rocks and stuff. I don't know if that was a failed abduction or somebody changed their mind, or if there was something more to that. He didn't look the same. People talked about that. He had that 1,000-yard stare. He saw some stuff out there. When I was a little kid, I saw people come back from Vietnam that had that look, that had some kind of PTSD. I would love to hear years from now what he has to say about that encounter.
I think there is something more about that. I really do. And to me, it has Sasquatch written all over it, much like that
Mhm.
little boy in North Carolina who was kept warm in the winter by a big teddy bear. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
if you know
you and I know
wilderness,
bears don't cuddle children and bring them berries. And
you got that right. Steve Stockton from Among the Missing. If you have it already, go to his YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell. Let's see if you can make you the 100,000th subscriber there. Missing People when we return on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we are clear. Scotty Jensen, good to have you back, man. Thanks for joining us. Random Gee, what's happening? All right. Somebody trying to rob him today. He saved their life by talking them out of it. Yeah, that's a good man. Good
Holy
man.
crap. Yep.
Well, if you saw Random Gee, he's like 6'3", 280. And literally he has about 47 guns on him at all times. Right. And like,
Not somebody you want to rob
no, because he
or
could
mess with in general.
yeah,
How long we got? 4 minutes, 5 minutes?
about 4.5.
I'll be right back.
Sure. How you doing there, Dirty Filth?
Oh, not bad. Drawing cartoons.
How's Blobbert tonight?
She's was sitting beside me, and now I have no idea where she went.
I have a feeling we're gonna get a sighting tonight. I got a feeling.
Always a possibility.
Mm-hmm. Are you happy?
I'm always happy, Dave. It's always sunny in my world.
Yeah. That's why you wear a ball cap.
Yeah, it keeps my head from burning.
Mm-hmm.
My pasty white skin.
Hello, the lovely and talented Susie B. Look at all these 6-foot-plusers in the chat room tonight. God, I just wanted 5'9". Mm-hmm. Congratulations on Ozzy Ange becoming our latest space traveler. Thank you, Ozzy Ange, for the love. Hey, there's little Tommy Fessler from Disclosure Tonight. He switched the plaid to a hoodie, but it is coming up to firewood season, so he will be back in plaid in no time, talking UFOs and everything. Seriously, though, if you guys need to warm up for this show, always go to Thomas Fessler at Disclosure Tonight, my friends. Hi, IXOXI. How are you? And who else do we got here? Alex Sanchez. Good evening to you. Light Walkers. Thanks for coming on in. I have 72. Dude, about an hour and a half ago, we just had a thunder and lightning storm roll in, and it just pounded us with hail. Tyrone Wilson, how you doing, buddy? Skip to Malou, good morning. By the way, I would like to know which countries you are from tonight. I know our American people are regulars, but let us know. See the board behind me? It's actually a pin cushion, and I'm trying to track how many different countries that we have. So I'm looking for countries tonight, not states or provinces. I'm looking for countries tonight. Hey, thank you very much, Lord William, for that wonderful super chat. Appreciate you, my man. All right. Electric Cuttlefish from Australia. I know I know who the Aussies are. Norway, super knower. Okay. I don't know if I got Norway marked on there. Kevin, you're in BC. I didn't know that. England we got. England, Australia. There's no Narnia on my map.
Gotta get someone from the Antarctic. That'd be the best.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool. Very true, Thomas Fessler, on that super chat. Very true. $5 US equals $9.99 Canadian dollar. Thanks to Trudeau. Absolutely. And don't forget, For a minimum of $5, you can join our Space Travelers Club. Head on over to Patreon. The link is in the bottom of this description of this show. So make sure you head on over. And you can do some great shopping at our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. A plethora. All right, Dirty, I'm going to mute you. And hopefully we get a blob sighting. And here we go with the next half hour, everybody. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Dave Scott, and I love doing this show for you. Reminder to all of you that if you've missed portions of this show, all of our archives are free. Just join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. From among the missing, the man you hear kick off hour number 3 of this show each and every night, our good friend Steve Stockton is here with us, and he has built a little empire. And Steve, you're going to have to give me some of them YouTube tips, man, because what you've done in 9 months on that with that channel has taken me like 5 years, man. 5 years. So
Yeah,
you're going to have to give me some tips here.
I had a following already, and it's not even been 9 months yet. I only started that channel like in February, I think. So it's
Beautiful.
I can't math in my head, but yeah, it's doing great. I've got a lot of ardent fans. People like my style of storytelling and my voice. I get a lot of compliments from people that have chronic fatigue, PTSD, chronic pain, fibromyalgia, insomnia. They like to hear me talk. So there you go. God has blessed me with a voice, and I turn around and give it back to people. That's what you do with a gift.
Steve, I'm not going to lie. I think one of the biggest compliments I could give you is you help me sleep at night.
Yeah.
And that isn't
I
an
put myself to sleep sometimes when I'm editing audio. I've nodded off here at the keyboard. So,
oh yeah, no, I fully understand. I've had listeners who say, "I'm sorry, you help me fall asleep at night, and I never get to listen to the full show." That's okay, because
that's
we
what
all
replay's for.
But you know what? To me, it's a compliment
It is.
because,
It is.
and I'm sure it is to you too, because a lot of people have a lot on their mind, and they use a channel like yours or like mine, a show like mine, nightly to help them relax, to take their minds away from the daily rigors, whether it's family or tension at work or social media or media, or maybe they're stuck in rush hour traffic for 2 hours a night. You know what I'm saying? They use us to help.
And I get that. People, I fall asleep, but I have the strangest dreams. So I hope that's not a problem for some people. Same way for me, depending on what I go to sleep listening to, I have strange dreams too. But that prompted me to start another channel. My wife and I have a channel called Insomniac Radio Theater. And over there, I just do some pure storytelling and things. That's it has a little creepiness to it, but it's not totally out there. And then I have just some like me reading stories out of a book in the rain and things like that to help people relax that don't necessarily want some kind of creepy nightmares about going missing.
You are one of the top storytellers about people who just vanish into thin air and never to be seen again, whether they're walking in the middle of a nightclub and they're going to get another drink or going to the bathroom, or they go for a hike in some state park or national park, never to be seen again. Where do you find these stories and the information that goes along with them?
My wife Nicole writes my scripts for me. And we do a lot of research, a lot of digging, and then I pass it over to her, and it's her words that you hear me speak. But it's out there everywhere. I mean, those people literally go missing everywhere. Like you said, it can be a nightclub, it could be in the woods, it could be from their own home or walking to the corner. Or had a guy in New England years ago that disappeared while on a bus. Figured that one out. He was on the bus. People saw him on the bus. When it got to its destination, he was no longer on the bus, and he's never been seen again. Nobody saw him get off anywhere. Go figure.
There's one case in British Columbia of a young boy. And I don't know if you've ever done a story on it, and I would love for you to do it. Because when I was a child, when we were children, I mean, this happened in the 80s. A young boy went to the park while his parents were watching a charity softball game, disappeared, never to be seen again. His name is Michael Dunahee. And they have tried using composite drawings that would age him, because I think he'd be about 30 years old now, 31 years old. And he just vanished without a trace from Vancouver Island. And to this day, it's still an open case. A few years ago, there was a young man who was kind of transient, who they thought might be Michael, actually looked like the composite drawings that were done by computers in age progression. Unfortunately, his DNA proved differently. And, the parents, they knew there was little to no hope. But I mean, these cases are happening all over, and it's not just children. It's like responsible adults too. Is there a case out there that has just really hit you hard, when you've been studying it or researching it?
There's a lot of them. And it's like you said, it's not just children. It's all ages, and it seems to be on certain ends of the spectrum. You will have people that are on the autism spectrum. They tend to go missing, and then you have people on the other end of that, PhDs and learned people tend to go missing. People of Germanic descent are more likely to go missing. People that are very fit, people, trail runners and things like that, people that don't just hike but run up those mountains, they go missing. So it's almost like if there is something taking people out there, there's a certain type of people that likes to take. Now, is that, for some genetic reason, or just because they're prime specimens, or the more you delve into it, the less sense it actually makes. But it's apparent that something is going on out there. Now, some of them you can kind of understand. An elderly person hiking the Appalachian Trail goes missing. Okay, you can kind of figure. There's things that can happen there if you're ill prepared, or especially doing a months-long through hike like that. But for somebody, there's a case, I want to say it's in Washington State, where they were having a trail running event, and they saw the guy run up the mountain past one of the checkpoints, but he never came back down. They searched everywhere for him, and one of the law enforcement officials said he's not on the mountain. He either went in the mountain or he went up, because he's just not on the mountain. Where'd he go? Did something take him? There's so many cases like that. Again, it almost has to be a supernatural explanation, because nothing else fits.
Is that where you're leaning, that something supernatural is happening to these people?
In a lot of cases, yes. And what that supernatural something is, that's the $64,000 question, if you will. And like I said, I've been asked, is it Bigfoot? Is it UFOs? Is it Dogman? Is it portals? Is it government? Something? Yes, I think it's all those, maybe none of them, because there's so many things that it could be, and so many things that it aren't. It's Occam's razor, if you will. The simplest explanation is usually the most accurate. Some of these, it has to be something otherworldly, or something we're not aware of, or not familiar with anyway.
One of your most recent videos was on the Mammoth Cave National Park. What's going on there?
Well, there's a part 2 of that coming out where we talk about the missing people from there. That one just came out today. Thanks for shouting it out there. It's a strange place. It's the largest cave system in the United States. It goes for miles and miles and miles. It's only been partially mapped. And again, anytime you have anything underground, that seems to be to play into it too. If you overlay a map, particularly a map of people that are missing in the national parks, with the cave systems throughout the United States, those clusters of missing people line up almost exactly where those cave systems are. So is there something underground taking them, or it's too much of a coincidence to be a coincidence. I myself, I don't really believe in coincidence. I think there's synchronicities, and something in the ground in the cave system. I think that's where a lot of those people end up. I don't know what. I mean, that's again, it's one of those things. The more I look into it, the more questions I have. I have more questions now than when I started. And as Charles Fort once wrote, "One measures a circle beginning anywhere." So you can start looking into this from any angle, and just the only factor that fits all of them is the person disappeared. Now, some of it can be explained. We had another video recently about people that go intentionally missing. That happens sometimes. People that just want to start a new life, or people that have a tremendous debt, or whatever reason, just want to disappear. Now, I don't really count those, because that's, if a person chooses to disappear, that can happen. But there are people that obviously didn't choose that. And somebody in your audience there, Neil Warden, is saying DUMBS, deep underground military bases. That's another thing that people point to, that there are possibly bases underground, and maybe that's where these people are. But why are they taken there? What are they doing with them? Who knows? Conjecture.
How many of these people do you think are falling to foul play by, say, individuals who are serial killers, or maybe people who live so off the grid they haven't been seen in years or decades, and they don't like people treading in their territory? And
Yeah.
much like a bear or a cougar, they would know exactly every trail of where they lead, the cave systems and everything. I mean, could it
Yeah.
be as plausible as that?
Absolutely. And you've had cases where there were serial killers that worked the trails, and just in general, and missing people are accounted for that. Israel Keys is a case that I made a video about. He was responsible for at least a dozen deaths that they know of. And you have people like the Green River Killer and Ted Bundy. They're not even sure that they've found all of his victims. So that can account for some. But then, like you mentioned, feral people, we have a video about that too. And that's one of the things that they talk about, particularly in the Southern Appalachians and the Smokies, that there are people that live so far back in the woods, they may have several generations that have never lived other than where they're at. And that can happen. A lot of people poo-poo that and say, well, if there were people in the woods, we would see them. And my answer to that is, you just haven't been far enough back in the woods. There are places you can go where probably no person other than maybe an indigenous person has ever set foot. If even then, you just have to get far enough back in there. Also point out Eric Rudolph, the bomber that was on top of the FBI's most wanted list. He hid out in Nantahala National Forest for 5 years. And this was somebody with very limited survival experience and stuff. If a guy like that can hide out, think about somebody that's grown up in those woods, like you said, that the whole family has been generations off grid and living in the woods. They can definitely be out there, and you wouldn't see them if they didn't want to be seen.
Okay, so out of, let's say, if you took 100 people who've vanished, just disappeared, how many of them do you think are taken by these feral people or murderers? 20%, 30%?
Something like that. I think the FBI estimates there's I want to say 60 serial killers in operation at any given time in the United States. So that's what they'll admit to. It's probably higher than that. And you have things like the Appalachian Trail that runs from Georgia to Maine. A lot of people have gone missing on that, and that could be a serial killer. What better place to hunt than a trail in the woods? You can hop off the trail and be in some little town. You would bypass any kind of dragnet or roadblocks or things they had looking for people. And there have been murders on the Appalachian Trail. Uh, some of them not necessarily serial killers, but just people with some sort of a distorted reality or mentally ill. But it does happen, but it's probably a small percentage. I'd say 20% or less.
Okay, so in your estimation, let's go to, like Mount St. Helens, where you did the story about Ape Canyon. Okay, I mean, yes, 57 people died and have never been found from the eruption of Mount St. Helens back in May 18th of 1980. However, the Ape Canyon story that you tell, I mean, that tells about a real scare, one of the most scariest encounters ever with Sasquatch.
Yeah, and there's people theorized that Sasquatch was killed when the mountain erupted, and they found the remains of that cabin, so that much of the story is true. What they encountered, who knows? They called it ape men. It was really before Bigfoot or Sasquatch was in the lingua franca, uh, um, common knowledge. But it sounds like that's what they're talking about. And if you look at what they described and how the creatures stood on the bluff there and rained rocks down on the cabin and stuff, it's exactly what it sounds like.
Now, when you tell a story like that, because I'll be honest with you, I was glued to it. Not only is it one of my favorite Sasquatch stories ever, but I mean, to this day, people still go to that area looking to see if they can have some sort of Sasquatch encounter. I mean, we're talking a little bit more than legend here when people are still trying to investigate.
Yeah, absolutely. In the Pacific Northwest, I lived there for about 10 years. And you have so many people from so many different backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, and things that it knows no particular rhyme or reason or season or anything. The Native Americans have stories going back hundreds of years about those type creatures. It tends to be on both coasts and in the South more so than in Middle America. But the Pacific Northwest is just, if you listen to the stories and the legends, it's rife with Sasquatch. I saw a footprint in the snow up there, not too far outside of Vancouver. That was in the Gifford Pinchot National Forest. And then I saw what I believe an eyewitness encounter with some kind of creature uh, walking down the side of the road in St. Helens, Oregon, about 2 o'clock in the morning. I thought it was somebody in a fur coat. It looked like it was wet, but it wasn't raining, but it was furry looking. It had a shine to it. I think that was a Bigfoot sighting, but I don't know for sure. I started to go after it. I thought I need to get closer and check this out. And I heard my grandma's voice in my head say, "You need to get in the house, is what you need to do." So I turned around and went back. But the area where I saw it walk by, it walked past the stop sign. And the next day I went out there and looked, and the stop sign was a lot higher than my head where this thing's head passed by. It would have had to been about 8 feet tall. So I think that was a Bigfoot or Sasquatch. I've been to Mount Shasta in Northern California, a lot of sightings up there. I interviewed a girl, Kay Love is the name she goes by. She was living in Texas and felt Shasta's call. It's a strange place anyway. There's a lot of weird energy there. And she dropped everything, bought survival gear, and went and lived in a tent in Mount Shasta for 5 months, just for this unexplainable call that she felt pulled there. And she called them the tree people, but it's what other people call Sasquatch or Bigfoot. I think there's different types of them. There's different families of them, if you will. Some of them are friendlier than others. And there's so many stories and legends and things. At least part of it has to be true.
Steve Stockton from Among the Missing is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We got just under 5 minutes to go here before we have to go to break at the top of the hour. Steve, there are so many cases about people reappearing. they vanish, and then all of a sudden they show up out of nowhere, in a different location. They can't remember where they've been or how they got there. What's going on? Explain a case or two that you've tracked down about this.
Yeah, there was a guy that was skiing in the Niagara Falls area on the Canadian side, and then he sort of came to. He was in California, still had his skiing clothes on, and had such a short time had passed. There was no way he could have gotten there. He didn't think without flying or something. His hair was cut, and had some other things that he didn't recognize with him. What happened there? Was it a failed abduction? Did they drug him and take him and then decide, we don't want him? But that's happened. But there's historical cases of that. There was a Spanish soldier from the Philippines that showed up in Mexico City, and just all of a sudden, and he couldn't explain how he got there, but his story checked out. And I think I want to say that was in the 1600s or 1700s. So it's not anything new where people just suddenly show up in another place. And you think, is that some sort of teleportation or portal or what happened? There's other stories like that. The Green Children of Woolpit, if you've ever paid any attention to that one, two kids just showed up outside this town with a green tint to their skin and claimed that they walked into a cave, and then this is where they came out, but no such place existed. Also, historically, Casper Hauser, another case where a young man showed up in broken language, said he wanted to be a soldier like his father was, but they couldn't even figure out where he was from, what language that he spoke, and things. There's lots of stuff like that just makes no sense. There was another gentleman that showed up at the airport that had a passport for a country that didn't even exist, that they couldn't find on a map. He tried to show them on a map, but there was no country there by that name. They, I think, put him in a hotel so they could watch him overnight. The next day he was gone, passport, luggage and all. They have no idea what happened to him. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but I've covered that case before. Those, I think, are more fascinating than the people that disappear, the people that just show up that you don't know where they've been. Another case in New York where a guy showed up in the middle of the street, got hit, and later perished, got run over by a taxi cab, and had personal effects on him from a century earlier. And they sort of tracked him down and found out that he had been a missing person several decades ago, and then he just showed up in the middle of a modern day New York to get run over by a cab. Had a token for or I think a coin from the time, had a receipt for a livery stable that hadn't existed in decades. How do you explain something like that? Is it just a story, or is there some truth to it? A lot of those, there are historical facts that back up that something happened.
It is so weird. Listen to that airport story with the gentleman with the passport just trips me right out, and from a country that didn't even exist. I mean, that's just right out of, a Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah, it's beyond science fiction. And I think there was a fictional story written based on that, but it was supposedly based on an actual event. I think the story that I heard, it called it A Man Without a Country or something like that. And he wasn't from anywhere that existed, and then he disappeared again. Boggles the mind, Dave.
It totally does. And Steve, you are a master at tracking these stories down, and many people do them, but some people do it better than others. And I would say you're one of them, my man. And I'm glad that we got you for another 1 hour here on Spaced Out Radio, where we will take some audience questions as well. If you're in our chat room or on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio, you can use that to ask Steve any questions. And when we return, more missing people, more reappearing people. Is it aliens? Is it Sasquatch? What about portals? All sorts leading to this mystery of missing people and people who reappear on Spaced Out Radio. We'll be right back with hour number 2. All right, we are clear. We got 6 minutes, Steve.
All right, I will be right back.
All right. Let me tell you something about Steve here. Okay? He's not a copycat. He's not someone, I mean, many other outlets have talked about these weird stories. We've talked about them. He just puts them together in perspective with the stories. Okay? And the other thing about Steve Stockton, he does radio interviews. Okay? David Politis, as much as I admire and respect the man, okay, does not do radio interviews. Why? Because what he does is he goes back to every show that he goes on and he sees how many books has he sold from being on that show. And if it's under 10 books, he will not do that show again. And he's only been on our show once, and that was in 2019. And he only did our show because it was about his new book about missing people in Canada. I like David. I have a lot of respect for his work, but there's a big ego when it comes to where he will appear and where he will not. So be thankful that we have the Steve Stocktons out there who come out and talk about these subjects. I will be, Steve doesn't buy subs, so that I do know. I'll be right back.
Oh, yeah. Look at me getting all used to the internet and stuff. Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a good night. I buy subs, usually pizza subs. You know, my light seems a little bit dim. Maybe it's just my monitor. Hello, Lord William. It is I, Dirty Filth, who is talking. Yeah, pizza subs are delicious. But you can't go to no chain restaurant. You gotta go to like a mom and pop place. Blobbert. Blob is currently passed out on the bed. Yes, Sandra Kincaid. I have a dramatis personae in the book, so I need to make pictures for each of the characters. I don't have to, but that's just the way I want to do it. So I have 10 to do. But I'm going to do the other 2 probably tomorrow while I'm at work. And that way I can draw a normal picture tomorrow. Yeah, it's like a pizza sandwich, Sleepy Howl. They just take a sub bun and they put pizza sauce and cheese and, I don't know, pepperoni and ham or salami, whatever. Green peppers and onions. Jalapenos. Gotta get those jalapenos on there. Oh, sorry about that, Sleepy Howl. I'd just like to say that Mrs. Filth made a whole bunch of chocolate chip cookies and zucchini bread the other day, and it was delicious. Everybody's jealous. Oh boy, Sabrina. Well, I guess since it's an RV, there's not a lot of space unless you have one of those giant RVs that, you know, kind of like a sports model UFO. Where you go inside of it and it's really big on the inside but small on the outside.
What do you say there, Dirty?
Hi, Dave.
Hi, Dirty.
I moved the screen up so everyone could see my stuff.
Oh, good. I apologize. Normally I do that for you.
Well, that's fine. I figured it out. I know what I'm doing now.
I want to say a big thank you to Simon ×2, Louis ×2, Lord ×2, Thomas ×2, Derek, and Cowboys, and Stephen in the UK. Appreciate it. Hello, my brother Eugene. How are you? Good to see you. And yeah, you can also join the SOR Space Travelers Club. The link is below in the chat description. Do a little shopping at our website, spacedoutradio.com. We would appreciate the love and support, and we'd love pictures. Sapphire Elf, how are you? Good to see you. And here we go with the next hour, everyone.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for joining us. We very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Please join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. And what do we got here? Xerophobus. Xerophobus is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We're just waiting momentarily for Steve Stockton to return as we kick things off for the second hour here. And you know, one of the things that really trips me out about these people who go missing is how you hear these stories of people who return, especially if they're like on hiking trails, and they talk about how they couldn't hear anybody, they couldn't see anybody, and yet the people that were in front of them or behind them can't find them either. It's a real strange happening. Now, for me, I believe a lot of this has to do with portals. And Steve Stockton, I want to ask you about portals here for a moment, because, you know, some of the stories that really trip me out are ones where these hikers will be, say, on a regular trail that they have hiked for years, and their hiking partner has been with them for years, whether they're a married couple or brother, sister, or best friends, or whatever it may be. And then all of a sudden, poof, they go around a corner and they're gone. And then the person who goes missing, when they come back, they're like, I was walking up and down this trail for hours and never saw you. Where did you go? And it's a game of who's in the right dimension here. I mean, you've covered stories like this. What's your thoughts here?
Yeah, I believe portals are some type of rift in time and space or another dimension. I think that exists, and that is one of the answers. Just because of scenarios like that you described there, that's happened on many occasions when people have gone missing. And the whole thing with the portal, there, people have also, when they come back, if they will talk about it. And that's another thing. You have a lot of people that won't talk about what they saw or experienced, but they will remember hearing uh, what sounded like a machinery or a high pitched hum or even a clanging like a metallic noise. What on earth is that? Is that something opening or shutting? Um, but the portals makes the best sense. I mean, some sort of something that we don't understand or something that is beyond our ability to grasp as far as who's controlling it and how. But you have that in other cases too, like the Skinwalker Ranch. I can't remember the name of the first couple that had experiences there, but the woman talked about she was standing doing dishes one morning, looking out the window. She sees what she described as a portal opens up. A two-legged canine creature with a scowl on its face walks out. The portal closes back, and then another time she looked out, and a portal opened up, and she said there was a man sitting at a desk doing something. He looks up, he sees her, makes a face, and then the portal closes. So what is that? You know, I think there are things out there that we don't understand or we're not allowed to know about yet. They can account for a lot of this stuff. And that's again, that's just conjecture. That's a lot of woo territory there, but uh, offer me a better explanation.
You know, people such as yourself, you're always concerned about going into the woo aspect of as every with everything, and I can understand why. Okay, because it's very hard to describe, something along those lines without, trying to make it sound a little hokey. And that's
Right.
not what you want to do. You want to bring some reality to these stories. But, like people who seem to be just vanishing, they often talk a lot about these cloaked creatures that look like, from the movie Predator,
Mhm.
coming in and grabbing them and running off with them and then letting them go, and they can't see the creature, they can't, but they can feel it, they can feel its presence, or see a shimmering or something.
Yeah, you hear those stories. Bruce Maccabee's wife, Jan, has a really good story that she tells about being deer hunting in a tree stand and saw a creature in an adjacent tree like that. It looked like saran wrap or plastic. She could see through it, but it was in the outline of a humanoid, if nothing else. And again, I believe there's technology out there that we don't know about, some sort of cloaking technology that either our government or some government has, or some sort of other race, perhaps. And again, the reason to avoid woo territory, you don't want to alienate people and scare people. I mean, people like you and I that are experiencers and knowers, it doesn't bother us to consider those kind of explanations as rational and sane. But for John Q. Public, that's quite a leap of faith sometimes to believe or admit a belief in aliens or Bigfoot or portals or some nefarious alien race or something. But again, what you gonna do?
Well, the interesting part about the Jan Maccabee case was at that exact same time when that happened, there was a high school marching band
Mhm.
practicing on the high school football field, and they actually witnessed a giant UFO flying over them at the same time.
Mhm. Yeah, that was common, particularly back in the 70s, with a lot of Bigfoot sightings. There would be an accompanying UFO sighting and vice versa. They tend to go along with one another. And then the same thing now when you see this glimmer man or the whatever creature they're calling it, the predator creature, there will be some sort of other event nearby, usually a UFO or something like that, something beyond the norm for sure.
You know what I find very interesting about that entire case is her husband, Bruce Maccabee, is a longtime government scientist who is also on the Woo desk with
Yeah, very
UFOs.
outspoken about UFOs, indeed.
And, and he was also considered to be one of the aviary back in the day that included people like Hal Puthoff, John Alexander, Jim Semivan, and many others that were talked in code by the names of birds.
Mhm.
And I just feel that it's just very, very intriguing that happened, and I believe that story because of it.
Yeah. And what better person for that to happen to than his wife? It's just, it's like one of those things where I talk about, not so much that I chose the paranormal, but it chose me. Somebody like that, was he chosen for those positions because of something in his cosmology, something in his makeup that makes him more tuned, more open to those things, whether it was done on purpose or whether that's just the way things happen.
All right, let's get to a couple of audience questions here, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Brown Dwarf is asking, Steve, do you have any current strange missing persons cases you could share?
Gosh, there's a lot of them. Brown Dwarf, how you doing? He's a good friend of mine, and I think he's in LA still. Um, there's so many. That Riker Webb case that he was talking about earlier, that one, that's still one of the strangest ones that really sticks with me and bothers me. And that one's a couple of years old at this point. But somebody else in the chat had asked, "Are people changed when they come back?" I think that little boy was fundamentally changed in some way. If you look at the way he looked before and the way he looked when he came back, it's not. He doesn't even. He resembles the kid, but he doesn't look like the same kid completely. Somebody commented on the video that that's not the kid. Whatever that is, that's a changeling. Take it and put it back and go look for the real kid. And that's another thing, the whole, once you get off into that area, talking about the Fae and everything, and people that believe in UFOs and Bigfoot ardently, you mention the Fae, they giggle at you. But if you look back at the umbrella of the Fae and all the different types of Fae creatures, I mean, it covers elementals, hairy giants. There was a case I think it's in the 1800s, where people in Ireland, I believe it was, encountered two little men in a horseless buggy that came down out of the sky. That's a UFO encounter. It all kind of fits neatly under the umbrella of the Fae. So is there something to do with all that we don't understand? Is that a part of our world, the supernatural world around us, and the way that dovetails into it? But
Right.
Brown dwarf, they're all strange. Any of the ones that can't be explained, or that uh, like the Julian Sands. I mean, they found him, but what were the circumstances there? What happened? I'm still waiting for some solid answers about the family that perished in Devil's Gulch, where they were found sitting up. The father was sitting up on the trail, deceased. The mother was a few yards down the trail, deceased. The dog and the child were right there beside him. And they blamed dehydration. They blamed toxic mold. All the explanations they were coming up with made absolutely no sense. I mean, a dog, no matter how loyal, if it's off a leash, it's not going to sit there and die of dehydration if there's a water source nearby. It's going to leave its people and go look for water. But yet they all perished right there within feet of each other. Something about that one doesn't smell right, doesn't make sense. And there's that devil name. A lot of stuff tends to happen, particularly in these missing cases, in places that have a devil or Diablo or something sinister in the name. And you have to wonder, is it so named because of the things that have happened there? Or do things happen there because it is so named? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? That's something that bears looking into. Lauren Coleman wrote extensively about the name game in the 80s. And he was just continuing research that Charles Fort started back in the 30s and the 40s. But there are certain place names that keep popping up. And again, anything with devil, Diablo, demon, any of that in the name, strange things tend to happen there. It's unusual.
Very unusual, and thank you for sharing that. Before I get to another question, we mentioned the Riker Webb story here, where this one, I don't care how many times we say it, I want to get into this one again. This was a 3-year-old boy, I believe. Was he 3 or 4?
I think he was 3 at the time.
Yeah, who in Montana, just before, was it winter or just before winter?
I think it was either just before winter or just after winter. It might have been in the spring, but it was rainy and cool. It wasn't in the summertime or anything, I don't believe.
Okay, so this 3-year-old boy wanders off from his home, and his parents look for him for 2 hours, and he's gone for 2 days, only to be found in a shed with his dog sleeping in a lawnmower bag in order to keep warm. And you mentioned how the boy looked. I mean, take us through this story again, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's again, if you look at those pictures of when he went in and when he came out, he's got that 1,000 yard stare. Like I said, when I was a kid, I saw Vietnam vets that looked like that. He saw something, he experienced something. And if you look at those pajamas, the little footy pajamas that he's in, they're dirty, but there's no way that kid walked for miles through the mountains, through mud and rocks and things like that. Uh, Somebody either took him there, or he was transported, teleported. There you go. You have it on screen there. You kind of see the feet on his pajamas there. It's more evident in that small picture up in the top left there. But there's no way he walked through mud and things. And for a child, and I think they even measured out the distance that he went from where he started to where he ended up. And a grown man had a hard time doing it. Yet here's a little kid that went up and down mountains, and they thought that he had either eaten or was looking for bugs because they'd found rocks overturned. But they said that he was a fan of bugs, that he might have been looking for some bugs. But yeah, went for a walk with his dog and then just disappeared. But I mean, he doesn't look the same. Look at that.
No, I mean, if you look at a comparison of the pictures, okay, he looks like a young lad who has seen something, and you use the term the 1,000 yard stare. You know, if he did see something, let's say it was another person, or it was a Sasquatch, or an alien or whatever that moved him in there, do you think they would keep that purposely out of the press?
I think so. And like I said, I'm interested to see when he gets a little bit older, what, if any, memory he has of this. There's been people that have disappeared that either don't remember or say that they don't remember because they don't want to talk about it. Some people just flat out refuse. So they saw or heard or experienced something. But um, same with the story about the robot grandmother on Mount Shasta, the little kid that all that happened to. I would love to know what he has to say about that in a few years, if he remembers anything. Um, it could be, one of these cases like in some of the UFO cases where they have a screen memory where it's been oppressed, and it may only come out under, say, hypnosis or regression or something like that. But it's still, I mean, I just look at it. It just, but
Well,
if you look at his feet there's no way he walked several miles through the mountains in those, what he's wearing there.
Well, the other story too that we like to talk about on here is a couple of years ago where in the winter time, a young boy in North Carolina went missing for 2 days. Parents couldn't find him. He was playing in his yard, playing hide and go seek or chase around the house with his siblings, and then just vanished. And the little boy ended up saying that he was, with a teddy bear that took care of him and kept him warm at night for a couple of days. And I live in the wilderness, man. It is bear season here. Okay. The one thing I know about bears in talking to survivalists and hunters and everybody in this area, that a bear that wakes up during hibernation is a very pissed off bear, a very hungry bear, a very angry bear that's going to attack. And a child wouldn't be a pet, it would be a meal.
Exactly. And that's not the only time that's happened. There was another case where a little girl, same situation, but she described it as a big hairy doggy that kept her warm. And I think it fed her berries or something. Dogs, bears, they don't cuddle with children and feed them berries and stuff. I think it's a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot. That's about all it could be.
And in that case in North North Carolina, where the boy was found in a briar patch. That area had been looked at and passed 4 or 5 times by search crews.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden he's there.
That's common in a lot of these cases too, that the people will be found either alive or deceased in an area that's already been searched, sometimes many times, and sometimes like right in the middle of the trail or right in the edge of the trail, almost like if something had them when it brought them back, it was taunting the searchers. And I've often thought about that. There's other commonalities. Sometimes people will be found in a boulder field. They look like they've fallen from a considerable height when there's no height for them to have fallen from. But like here in New England, the Algonquin Native Americans, they have a story about a creature that looks like a rock, and it likes to hide in boulder fields. And when something, a deer or a human, passes by, it will open up, swallow them, and then when it's done with whatever sustenance or whatever it gets out of a living, breathing thing, spits it back out. Well, if you've been taken inside something that was basically a rock creature, crushed to death, and then spit back out, you might look like you'd fallen from a great height. Who knows? And there's other cases like that where they found people in the woods that have been missing that look like they've been crushed to death. But by what? There's a case here in I think it's the Bennington Triangle, where a hunter was found, looked like he'd been crushed to death, in the same area where they've had a lot of Bigfoot or Sasquatch sightings. One that looked in a stagecoach or turned a stagecoach over, looked at it and screamed, and then ran off into the woods.
Well, I know I live in an area where when you go out in the woods, there's a lot of boulder fields out here because the logging companies, they dump these boulders into these areas, or they were made by, lava mounds or earthquakes or whatever it may be. There's no trees growing in these areas. They're actually quite creepy. You're just waiting for something to pop up out of them. And it's not a very nice energy when you're around a boulder field. I can tell you that.
Yeah. And again, it's the theories and legends, it all kind of lines up with there's something out there that takes people. And like I said, the ones that are found and are still alive, they either have no memory or they don't want to talk about it. And the ones that do talk about it, they remember things like we talked about, where suddenly they weren't on a trail that they recognized. They could see or hear the searchers, but the searchers couldn't see or hear them. It's almost like, the way I heard it described one time, is like two pieces of silk with the different dimensions on it. And they come close together and they kind of press together. You can see through both at the same time. But then when they part, something that was on one piece may have stuck to the other temporarily. And that's kind of a strange analogy, but it makes sense if the fabric of time and space actually touched and commingled for a bit.
Well, I can tell you when we were a few weeks ago, when we were out filming in our area, we were in the forest in the middle of the night, probably 100 yards from an airplane crash site that killed 52 people. And I didn't hear this because I have really bad tinnitus in my ears. But the people who I was with on the investigation actually heard the mumbling of men and women's voices in the forest. They couldn't make out what they were saying. But this is 11:30 at night, 12 o'clock at night. Okay, in the middle of nowhere. We're 25 miles into the forest from the closest town. There's nobody out there. There's one way in and one way out. And for them to say they heard these voices, and it was just like so faint that you couldn't make out what the words were. I mean, that is creepy as hell.
That is very creepy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have
You
to
don't
look
know
into
what
that.
that is. You don't know what that is. Steve, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. And we have Steve Stockton from Among the Missing on YouTube for another 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio. Yeah, we're talking missing people, reappearing people. How do people just vanish? You got to be careful when you're out in the wilderness. You never know what's watching you. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. All right, we're clear. We got 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, be right back.
Yeah. Hi, Caveman. How you doing? Welcome to SOR Chat. And who else jumped in here? John Jackson, Terry Brown. Good to see you guys. TMI, thanks for coming on in. Steven Squarek, welcome to SOR Chat. And who else is here? Let's see here. Dirt Road, nice to see you again. And I think I'm caught up. Dirty Filth, that looks pretty damn good there, man. Let's bring you up to task here. What do we got?
I'll have to move this up a little bit more there.
While you're doing that, let's say hi to Mr. Cowley. And boom, to Bama. How are you? We got a ghost. We got a gnome, a gray alien, and a night crawler. Very nice tonight, Dirty.
Thanks. I had to do a couple extra guys for the book. So now I can draw a normal cartoon tomorrow, Dave.
Hey.
Well,
when is part 2 coming out?
I'm just waiting for all the technical stuff to be finished. I got a pal that does all the book side of the stuff. I just do the drawings and the writing.
You're a book stuff type of people.
I think between Mrs. Filth and I, we got over 1,000 some odd books in the house.
Nice. Very nice art. So talented. And great framing on them.
Gotta have that slime green, the chartreuse frame.
All right. We want to say, hold on here. Dogface Simon, thank you for joining the SOR Space Travelers Club, as well as who else just joined? We have Mark Hayes. Thank you. And Simon and Mark, if you could get me your addresses so we could send you your swag for joining the Space Travelers Club, we'd appreciate it. That's awesome. Yeah, you can send me a private note on Patreon, and we will be able to get some in the mail to you here ASAP. If you send me your address. I'm going to figure out what Mark for Simon. What do we do? Hold on here. I'm so new to this. I'm just learning. What is that one? So this is what Simon gets. He gets a shout out on air. He's getting a t-shirt of his choice from the Spaced Out Radio store. If he comes over to the United States for a fan party, he gets 30% off his VIP ticket. Yeah. And, we're going to have a chat about some serious woo. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for next adventure in Reno there, Dave.
Gina Walpole. How much you got already?
Got like 40 art cards already done up.
Wow. That's impressive. You work hard for that. You do.
I enjoy doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you should. MM3, how are you? Good to see you. We got less than a minute here. That is awesome. Thank you guys for joining the SOR Space Travelers Club. If you're looking for it, all you got to do is click in the description below. It'll take you right to the link. We appreciate it. And Wham Bam Ham, how are you? All right, let's get ready to go here because we're going to be going pretty quick here in about 30 seconds. And do me a favor here. If you were at our Vegas party either the last 2 years, send us some pictures at info@spacedoutradio.com, info@spacedoutradio.com. We want to add those to the website real soon. And yeah, we got some good ones going up here. We're going to be doing a big shift on our website here pretty quick. So let's get to it. Steve Stockton is ready to go. I'm ready to go. And here we go. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. We very much appreciate broadcasting the woo to you. Reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, you know our archives are free. Yeah, all you got to do is go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. The only thing I want returned, because I will never charge for archives. Other shows do that. Other people want to take your money for that. Not me. I want our archives always to be free. So just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. That's all I ask. I think that's a fair trade. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We got a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. All right, for the final time tonight, Steve Stockton from Among the Missing on YouTube is here. Another channel you definitely need to subscribe to. Steve, thank you so much for being here tonight. Very much appreciate it, my man.
Oh, always a pleasure, Dave. Thanks for having me. And I appreciate you playing my stories 5 nights a week, too, in the third hour.
You know what? Our audience loves them, Steve. They look forward to it. And
got more new stuff coming. I've been on about a month-long honeymoon here, so getting things ramped back up.
Good. I can't wait. I love being able to do that, man. It just adds to the mystique of what we do on a nightly basis. And I know our audience loves it too. So, you know, and you do such a great job with it. And
Thanks.
we've been, yeah, go ahead.
And I thought what I might do is compile those into a video, put those on my channel and cross promote Spaced Out Radio over there too, if you're all right with that.
I would love that. I would love that.
Awesome.
You know, hey, I push my listeners to you. You can push yours to me. The only thing we need from all of them, hit subscribe. As weird as that sounds. Just
like, share, subscribe. Dave is the man. I've known Dave a long time. He's a great guy.
Steve, what kind of stories do you love to pump out? I mean, what really gets you excited when you're researching a certain type of story?
Believe it or not, I love a happy ending. I think most people do. Although the videos where people are found and are rescued, those don't play as well as the ones where people are never found. But Dogface, Simon there, he's a good pal of mine. He asked me what kind of stories hits me the hardest, and it's the missing children. I can't imagine, anytime a parent outlives a child, it's tragic. But to not know whether that child is even still alive or not, for to have a child go missing and absolutely no closure. I mean, if a child passes away, you've got a grave or you've got ashes, you've got something you can memorialize. But to not know, that would have to be just sheer torture. And back to Dennis Martin, I met his father several times. We lived in the same town, and he was just a haunted man. He went to his grave, I think in 2015, without ever knowing what happened to his son. One of the saddest things I ever saw was a local TV interview with him. I think it was like probably the 40th anniversary of Dennis's disappearance. And he said, in my heart of hearts, I don't think, I'll ever know what happened to him. He said, but there's a part of me that hopes that one day I'll hear a knock at my door and I'll go and open the door. There'll be a handsome man standing there, and another reporter wanting to talk to me. Yes, can I help you? And this handsome young man will say, Dad, it's me. It's Dennis. I've come home. And he talk about just yanking your heart out and stomping that sucker flat, and just the missing kid cases where there is no closure of any kind. That hits me the hardest. I mean, their little faces and their names haunt my sleep sometime, and Dennis Martin is one of those. Granted, it happened when I was 5 years old, but I got out on my little Schwinn Stingray bike and looked for him. I thought, well, we only live about an hour from the Smokies. Maybe he wandered down here. Of course, that was an hour by car, and I was just a little. I even left some snacks out in the woods and stuff just in case. That just it sticks with you. The kids, Kyron Harmon, little kid that went missing in near St. Helens, Oregon. I think he's on Sauvie Island. I think the stepmother knows exactly what happened to him, but then again, same with Dior Coons Jr. I think the parents know. I don't think that's a missing 411 case at all, but it's just anything involving a kid just really gets me in the feels.
I love it too when we got that happy ending. I think that's everything that it's made to be. One of the things before we get to more questions here that you pointed out earlier, and I would love for you to explain a little bit more. You mentioned that children with autism seem to go missing quite a bit.
Yeah, not just children, adults on the autism spectrum tend to go missing. And again, it's that whole one end or the other. Just a equal amount of people that are very educated PhD candidates, doctors, and things like that tend to go missing. And again, it makes you wonder. Sammy Bulkey that went missing at Crater Lake, he was autistic. And again, last time his father saw him, he was running up the bank, playing kind of hide and seek or tag or whatever. His father goes up after him, never saw him again. Dennis Martin, he was special needs as well. And it was at a time when they didn't really talk about Asperger's or autism, but I'd say that he would fit within that spectrum now. So I don't know if it's something that sees these kids as special, because a lot of times autistic children, they have wild talents and things to kind of make up for the parts that they're lacking in. Is there whatever's taking people? Does it want people like that are highly creative or capable of extreme concentration or different types of thinking, like a lot of autistic people are? Makes you wonder.
It really, really does. All right, let's go to another question from Doubleday here. Are feet still being found off the coast of British Columbia?
I haven't heard of any cases lately, but there for a while it was fairly common. And again, that was one of those things. There was conjecture, but never any solid answers. They thought it might have been from shipwrecks or some of the. I remember when the tsunami happened in Japan, they thought that some of those feet that were washing up still in the shoes were from victims of that, with the reasoning being that sea creatures were predators and ate what they could get to. And of course, if it was in the shoes, they couldn't eat it. And that's why the feet were still in the shoes. But that's such a weird and disturbing thing. Can you imagine a shoe washing up on the beach and there's a foot still inside it? And I think there were some cases where they actually found a pair. They found the mate to them. And I can't remember. That's been a while back, but I believe there may have been one or two that were identified through DNA as people that have been missing from something that happened at sea.
Yeah, the majority have been. And, in my sources about that story, because it does hit close to home. And when I worked in radio in Vancouver, our news part did cover, these missing feet cases. And a lot of the times Vancouver PD would kind of blow them off as people who committed suicide, jumping off one of the local bridges, because there's a lot of bridges around Vancouver. Okay, and then the currents take them out. The fish and the crustaceans, they feed off of the body, but because the shoes float and most people were wearing running shoes,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that were light, the foot stays in the shoe, And that's how it all of a sudden floats to shore. Now, I know sources who have looked into this who strongly believe that it is a serial killer that is taking their bodies out by boat and dumping them. Maybe they're chained to a cement brick or something that sinks them, and then what's left comes up, and it's very rare. But there was the idea that they, after the Picton case, that they didn't want to scare people anymore with any more serial killers, because something about the West Coast here between California to British Columbia, there is, I don't know what the hell breeds all these serial killers up on the West Coast.
Yeah, I've heard lots of theories about that. Have a lot in the Seattle Tacoma area, and I've even heard it attributed to the infamous SeaTac hum, whatever that noise is up there that they say that produces people like Ted Bundy. But again, that's pretty far fetched. I think I did one of the ATM on SORs talking about different homes heard around the world.
Yes.
You have that in Taos, you have that in the Seattle area and other places. People liken it to almost so it sounds like machinery running underground. What in the world is that? And then another thing kind of leads into that. When they find people, they'll find their boots in the woods. People that are missing, they will find their shoes or their boots left behind, sometimes sitting just side by side or maybe hanging from a tree. Why would somebody that was lost in the woods take their boots off? Well, one of the most interesting theories I've heard about that is whatever is hunting humans, it wants to give them a sporting chance, but not allow them to get away. So if you were going to chase somebody down in the woods, what better way to ensure that you could catch them than to take their footwear away, give them a head start. They're not going to get very far. If you've ever walked barefoot or sock foot in the woods, there's rocks and sticks and things you could run, but you couldn't get very far. And a lot of people kind of poo-pooed that and say, "Yeah." But think about that. In Portland, Oregon, they have what was known as the Shanghai tunnels, which very real thing. I've been down there. I've seen those tunnels. And the sailors back in the day, that's how they would get shanghaied. They would go into a bar or brothel. They slip something in your drink. Once you pass out, they dump you down a trap door in the back. You wake up in this tunnel that goes all the way to the river. And then you ended up on a boat somewhere. If you woke up before that, you're in this tunnel in the dark, disoriented. The floor is sandy down there, and there's still places where you can see the floor is littered with broken glass. Before they dumped those people down in the tunnels, they took their boots away. You wake up, you're disoriented, you're in the dark, and the floor is covered with broken glass. You're going to stay put. You're not even going to try to get away. So kind of stands to reason if you wanted to hunt humans, like the short story, The Most Dangerous Game, take their shoes away, give them a head start, you're going to catch them anyway. But what's hunting humans? Is it a serial killer, a human predator? Is it some kind of alien, the Glimmer Man? Something else? Something to ponder, something to think about. Stuff like that's what rolls around in my head when I can't sleep at night.
Let's go over to Paramarv, who is asking, what about time slips, where a person suddenly is thrust into another time?
Those are fascinating. I've read some just tremendously interesting accounts where somebody was in another time and saw things from another time and then slipped back. I've had experiences like that myself where I've seen things that later examination weren't there, or it was something that used to be there that's not there anymore. There's some famous stories where people have thought they were seeing a reenactment of a battle, and it turns out there wasn't any reenactment or anything going on there. Did they actually travel back in time or slip through some rift in time only to come back? I believe that does happen. Time is a human construct. I don't think time as we know it, we measure it one way, but that doesn't mean it's the only way it is. I've heard it described by some of the physicists and things that it's like a river, that it flows and it separates and it goes different ways. So I think there are different timelines and different things that can happen that can merge together sometimes, and you see things that did exist or no longer exist or exist in another time that runs parallel with ours. Now, again, that's getting some pretty heady stuff there, but that's the kind of stuff I think about.
No, and I don't blame you on that. And as someone who has experienced a couple of time slips, it's scary when it happens, man, because you don't know where you are or what's going on. And mine happened at the same intersection in Vancouver, once going westbound and once going eastbound, where I saw a green light. I hit my gas pedal to go through the intersection. All of a sudden, I hear cars honking at me because the light is red and I'm now running a red light. And that happened in both
Even something
directions.
small like that, and then sometimes it's bigger than that. And
Yeah.
it's amazing. I've had that. I was walking once in St. Helens, Oregon. I'd walked to the convenience store, which is 2 blocks from my house. I came back by my street. I hadn't got to my street yet. I turned down what I thought was my street. I was 3 or 4 blocks farther up than where I lived, and I knew I hadn't walked that far. Yet there I was. I had to turn around and go back. Another time in Portland, Oregon, I was downtown. I'd been to a record store. I think it was on 1st or 2nd Avenue. I was coming out of a place. Just as I went around the corner, there was a guy coming around the same corner in the opposite direction, dressed in 1800 style clothing. And since I got around the corner, I thought, I want to take a look at that guy's getup. I thought he was cosplaying or there was a steampunk convention or something. I turned right around, split seconds, went back around the corner. The guy's not there. And he had looked at me with like this just aghast look on his face, because at the time I had a blue streak in my hair, was wearing a leather jacket and ripped up jeans and a band shirt. And I wonder if back then a guy saw, what kind of devil was that passed me on the sidewalk in front of this bank building. There was no place the man could have gone. The windows that were on that side of that building were up high. There was traffic there. Even if he had ran out into traffic and crossed the other side of the road, I would have been able to see him. He just was no longer there.
Wow. Steve, this leads to our next question. This one comes from Sleepy Howl. Can you please share one of your own weirdest personal encounters?
Oh boy, I don't know where to start. I got a book full of them. My Strange World. One of the weirdest is I had missing time once when I was a teenager, and I shared it with another person. Um, I moved into a subdivision with my parents when I was 15, and it was built in sections. The first section, and then I lived in the second part of the development, and the third part of the development, which was up the hill, they'd only started construction on that phase. The only thing up there was they had the road paved in, but the lots were still wooded. The kid that lived up the street from me named Danny, we were up there riding our BMX bikes on this freshly paved roads, but there's no houses, no people up there. As we went by one particularly wooded area, I heard a noise up in the woods. Again, like I was talking about earlier, it sounded like something metallic. And I turned to look up into the woods. And then the next thing I remember, I'm still on my bike. I'm going the other direction, like back toward home, pedaling in motion, and had no idea, didn't remember turning around, doing anything. My friend Danny's right there beside me. We didn't say a word. He went to his driveway. I went to mine. I went to the house. My parents were like, "Where you been? We were getting worried about you." When we were up there riding bikes, it was around 8 o'clock. And when I got home, what seemed like just a few minutes later, it was after 11, and it was a school night. And I have no idea. I lost about 3 hours there, 2.5 or 3 hours. And the other kid experienced it too. Later at school, later on in the week, I'm like, what happened the other night? Did anything weird happen? And he's like, yeah, he's like, I was afraid to say anything. I was afraid you'd think I was crazy. But his experience was the same as mine. And to this day, we both remember the same thing. And I have no idea what happened, where those 3 hours went to. But we were on bikes going one way, and then all of a sudden we were still on the bike, still in motion, going the other direction, and almost 3 hours had passed. That's one of the strangest things that's ever happened to me that didn't involve some sort of creature or cryptid. And I've had people say, why don't you go get, hypnotic regression? Part of me's afraid to. I don't really want to know what happened, in case it was obviously something so traumatic that I've blocked it out, or there's a screen memory or something there. I think it was maybe some sort of abduction or something. Who knows?
Could be. Maybe you got a set of aliens. Let's see. We got 2 more questions for you in 5 minutes to go here, Steve. Let's go to Terry. What is your take, Steve, on the folded up clothes being found after someone disappears?
Well, you hear the rational explanation is paradoxical undressing, where when you're out in the woods and hypothermia begins to set in, you feel warm because your body heats up. It's trying to heat the core to keep you from freezing to death. But in reality, that's exactly what you're doing. And people will undress. But why would they take them off and carefully fold them up? I believe, again, this goes along with the boots being taken off. And it's almost like whatever is taking these people is removing their clothing and then leaving them folded up like that to taunt the people that are searching for them. I mean, yeah, the person's gone, but here's their clothes all neatly folded up with their boots sitting next to them. I think it has to do with whatever's out there that's taking people. I don't know if it's a joke or if they're just very tidy or what's going on, but it's strange. It just adds to the high strangeness of it all. And again, there is no rational explanation for it.
Well, that's the reason why we do what we do, because there is no rational explanations. Final question from our audience tonight goes to Android. Steve, what do you think of all these weird trumpeting sounds?
I've heard some of those recordings. It's very strange. If you read and believe in the Bible, it talks about that there will be trumps that sound during the last days. And based on everything that's going on and everything is upside down and backwards and the whole world seems like it's gone crazy, I think from a religious standpoint, I'm not going to preach to anybody here. I think we're in the last days. I think we're seeing the end of it all. The show's about to wrap up here. Who knows if it'll be in our lifetime or not. I've heard that preached in the pulpit when I was a little boy, that we're in the last days. So who knows? But again, I think it's something biblical. It's something or something trying to imitate that to either discourage or encouraging believers. Cathedra there says sound of the shofar. That's the traditional trumpet that's made out of a ram's horn. I've blown one before, and there's something about the sound of that. It causes something to well up in you. And the recorded sounds I've heard, that's what it sounds like. Somebody blowing a really, really big shofar. I don't know. Strange stuff.
It's like these sounds we hear from small towns where it sounds like trains are rumbling through, or there's some sort of underground screeching of Earth's plates that are moving. And I've heard those stories from all over North America, including north of me in a small town called Vanderhoof, British Columbia, from a number of years ago, where they were recorded. I mean, these strange sounds. Do you think Mother Earth might be bringing these sounds from her own, like this is just natural?
That's a possibility. I mean, like I said, the tectonic plates scraping together, something within the earth. There's a town in Oregon where they hear those, and they described it like what you described it, like a screeching sound or a metallic sound or like a train. Different people describe it as different things. And again, that's just difference in people. Some people hear something, other people hear something else, but it's just strange. And it's all over the country and the world. Here they reported these sounds. Again, that's something I've looked into, have no idea. I mean, there are possible natural explanations for it, but I get a feeling that it's something otherworldly, something supernatural.
I agree with you,
that's
Steve.
just me.
With 1 minute to go here, I want to say a big thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio again tonight. We love it when you come in, and I know we'll be talking to you probably before Christmas anyways, to have you on again. Tell everybody where they can find your channel.
Among the Missing is my big channel. That one's nearing 100,000 subscribers. Come on over. A lot of good videos scheduled over there. Nicole is the best writer I've ever encountered, and we make an excellent team. First Floor Audio that was in here earlier, Lee G, he does the music, and with the artwork and my voice and her words and everything, we've got something totally unique that you won't see on any other channel. We also have Insomniac Radio Theater, which is, again, my voice, but just reading normal stories. We got 13 Past Midnight, which has been on hiatus. It's about to come back. That's more paranormal type fare. And I got a new series of books out, Mysteries in the Dark. Look for it on YouTube. Or I'm sorry, on Amazon.
Steve Stockton, everybody. We will kick off hour 3 with a story from Steve. Then Robin McCrae will be in for the Cryptid Report. Hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio is next. Great job, Steve.
Good show. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody in the chat. I've had a great time. Look forward to coming back, Dave, and I'll get you some new material for the nightly stuff. Top of hour 3, we're working on that as we speak.
All right, buddy. You take care, okay? And thank you for coming on in on short notice.
Good. My pleasure. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Take care. Steve Stockton, everybody. One of the good guys in this field. I'll be right back. All right. I am back. What a great show. What a great show. Thank you to Steve for coming on in, and stays just as exciting with the Queen of the Cryptid, Robin McCrae, coming on up here momentarily. I want to give a shout out to our great new space travelers. Yeah, well, we're up to a few of them now. Let's see, where are they here? Big thank you to Mr. Cowley. I'll need your address, so please send that to me in the notifications on private message. I need a big shout out to Mark Hayes, Dogface Simon, Ange V, Paramarv, joining Lynn McKenzie and Mennonite Abe for the Space Travelers Club. We very much appreciate the love and support. So if you guys can hang on out and send me your addresses so that way we can get you some swag, we'd greatly appreciate it. We'd greatly appreciate it. We got 1 minute to go here. If you're interested in becoming a space traveler, what I need you to do is I need you to go down below in the link. There's a link in the description of this show, and you can join the Space Travelers Club right there. And over time, we are going to add more to the Space Travelers Club as we get used to handling it and figuring out what it is we actually are doing there. But it's really cool that you are doing that. And you can do some shopping at spacedoutradio.com as well. And you know what? We're very thankful also for the super chats. Simon ×2, Louis ×2, Lord ×2, Thomas ×2, Derek, Cowboys, Stephen, and Free Your Mind. Thank you so much for the love and support. We got hour 3 coming up here momentarily. So sit back, relax, because here we go.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Can't believe we're already in the third hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. This show is flying on by. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate broadcasting the weird and strange to all of you, especially those listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Please join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Zerophobus. Zerophobus is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Let us continue on with Steve Stockton as we have a great news story from Among the Missing.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Among the Missing YouTube channel on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'm about to take you on an unbelievable journey of people just like you. Their stories and encounters will haunt us on Among the Missing. And now we have the Lady Lovibond. For centuries, the tale of the Lady Lovibond has been one of the most fascinating legends of the high seas. It tells the story of love, betrayal, and tragedy that has captured the imaginations of sailors and storytellers alike. The Lady Lovibond was a 120-foot, three-masted schooner built in 1784 by John Perry of Whitby, England. In February 1748, the Lady Lovibond departed from London for a typical journey to Portugal. The vessel carried Simon Lovibond and his newlywed wife, Annette, who had only been married for a few days. Additionally, the crew consisted of experienced sailors. Legend has it that the ship was headed toward the Goodwin Sands near the coast of Kent when a crew member, driven by jealousy, intentionally directed the vessel toward the dangerous sands. The ship was destroyed, and unfortunately, everyone on board perished. The story of the Lady Lovibond has been retold in many books, songs, and films, but it takes work to discern fact from fiction. No records of the ship being wrecked on the Goodwin Sands in 1748 exist, and no official reports of the incident exist. Some theories suggest that the vessel may have been wrecked on the Goodwin Sands, but the authorities kept it hidden for unknown reasons. Others think the legend was created to excite an otherwise uneventful trip. The story of Lady Lovibond still intrigues sailors and storytellers globally, regardless of its authenticity. The vessel has become a representation of love, tragedy, and the perils of the sea. And now, the Orang Medan. In 1947, a ghost ship named the Orang Medan was found floating near the Indonesian coastline. The crew was discovered deceased, with their eyes open and faces frozen in fear. The radio operator was also found deceased, with his hand on the Morse code key, sending an incomprehensible message. Other ships nearby reported witnessing this eerie occurrence. For decades, the story of the Orang Medan has been widely shared, particularly among people interested in maritime mysteries and paranormal phenomena. However, some have questioned its credibility due to inconsistencies, unverified information in the story, and lack of concrete evidence to support it. Furthermore, the absence of any known photographs or physical evidence of the ship or its crew makes it challenging to verify the story. There is no clear explanation for what might have caused the crew's deaths. While some have suggested that the ship might have been carrying dangerous cargo, no evidence supports this theory. Others have suggested that the crew might have been exposed to toxic gases or other environmental hazards, but again, no concrete evidence supports this idea. The story of the Orang Medan is a fascinating and mysterious tale that's captured people's interest worldwide. It has been the subject of numerous books, articles, and documentaries, leading to endless theories and speculations about what happened to the crew. And lastly, we have the For over 100 years, people have been captivated by the mystery surrounding what happened to its crew and making one of the most intriguing mysteries in maritime history. The Mary Celeste was constructed in 1861 at Spencer's Island, Nova Scotia, Canada, and was initially called the Amazon. This vessel was a 103-foot brigantine with 2 masts for transporting lumber, coal, and other merchandise. It switched ownership multiple times before being acquired by an American entrepreneur named Benjamin Briggs in 1872. Briggs was a skilled sailor who had led various vessels before, including the Dei Gratia, the same ship that discovered the Mary Celeste adrift in the Atlantic. He intended to utilize the Mary Celeste to convey industrial alcohol from New York to Genoa, Italy. On December 7, 1872, the Mary Celeste departed from New York with a crew of 7, including Briggs' wife and 2-year-old daughter. Everything went smoothly until December 4th, when the Dei Gratia, a ship en route to Gibraltar, saw the Mary Celeste floating approximately 600 miles west of the Azores. When the crew of the Dei Gratia came upon the Mary Celeste, they discovered that it was sailing irregularly and seemed to be deserted. Upon boarding the ship, they discovered no trace of Briggs' family or the crew. However, they did find the ship's logbook, various documents, and ample supplies of food and water that had been stored on board for 6 months. The Mary Celeste had damaged its rigging and sails, but there was no sign of any struggle or violence on board. The ship's lifeboat was missing, but was later found adrift nearby. There was also evidence that the crew had left the boat quickly, and some personal belongings, such as pipes and tobacco, were left behind. Investigators have been puzzled by the discovery of the Mary Celeste, adrift and abandoned for over a century. Despite numerous theories to explain the crew's fate, none have been proven. Some argue that pirates or a rogue wave may have caused the attack, while others believe that the crew may have been afflicted by fumes from the industrial alcohol they were transporting. Additionally, some have suggested that the crew may have mutinied or left the ship for an unknown reason.
And that's why we love Steve Stockton around here. Not only is he a great guest, but he provides great stories as well. If you want more, head on over to youtube.com/Among the Missing. Hit subscribe, ring that bell as Steve puts out new content quite often. All right, from the missing to the mysterious in the mountains. We're looking for Sasquatch. We're looking for different cryptids. Here is Robin McCrae filling in for the vacationing Super Duke. Super Duke, the cryptid report with Super Duke. Robin McCrae, we love love it when you were here filling in for Super Duke on
Thank you.
radio. How have you been?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad to be. I love it here. It's like going home.
It really is. And we love it when you're here each and every week. It's a little bit different than what we normally do on the Cryptid Report. That's because you are continually in touch with what's going on in
Yeah.
the land of Sasquatch, especially. And not only are you an experiencer, you live in a property where you are surrounded by the big hairy creatures. And, it's like having a family outside and a family inside.
Yeah. Yeah. And every once in a while they wander inside. So
Have you ever been cooking dinner and had them steal your food?
I've had them like when I'm cooking dinner and I catch them peeking in the window, and like they've never come in when I'm like in the kitchen. I have had food made and then leave my kitchen, go into the bedroom or whatever, and come out, and then all of a sudden food's gone. I had made cookies one time and a whole entire plate of cookie vanished. We never got the plate back, never got the cookies back, never nothing. And I've had where I've cooked things and literally left the room, not for like 2 seconds, but left the room for, 15, 20 minutes or whatever. And then I come back and some is gone. And, you can try to say that the animals did it or whatever, because I do have dogs and cats, but when the dogs are all outside and the cats are all outside and that's all that's there. And then you find muddy footprints, and the muddy handprints. And when we first moved where we're at right now, I have a black refrigerator, and I would get up in the morning and these gigantic handprints all over the refrigerator. I mean, it was absolutely crazy, all these handprints. And I've gone to the store and come back and had my pantry door open, and I had a gallon of cooking oil and a gallon of white vinegar in there, and both the gallons were laying on their side, and it looked like a big muddy footprint stepped on it, and it had such force to it, it shot the cap right off of it, because they weren't even opened yet. Shot the cap off of it. The liquid's going all over the place. Things were pulled out of the pantry. It wasn't like it was ransacked, but there were things missing out of it. Or I would house, because of my earbuds are falling out. I keep my dog food in the house, so the mice don't get at it. And then when the mice get in it, the snakes come. And I've gone out there with a brand new bag of dog food and go to get dog food that day, and it's 3/4 of the way gone.
Wow. Okay, so what attracts Sasquatch or any other cryptid to human food?
Well, I mean, obviously the smell, and it's a lot easier meal than if they have to hunt. I mean, it's an easier way to do it. And when we get cooking and it smells good, it's just like anybody else. If they like the smell, they want it. I've had certain groups that would not take anything cooked. And then I've had other groups that loved it. But again, that goes back to some of them use fire. Some of them actually cook food. You're not going to see them out there with a recipe book and a pot and pan and doing their thing, but they will cook meat. They will cook things on fire. Some clans will use fire, some clans won't. It just depends.
Okay. I have heard stories of people who live, in rural areas near forests where Sasquatch has been sighted, and they cook a pie, and they put the pie up on the window sill
They
to
love it.
cool down, and next thing here comes this giant hairy hand reaching for the pie and taking the pie and walking off with it into the forest. Have you heard stories like that?
Yeah, and I've had where when I was in Michigan, we had these fence posts, and I would go out there and I would put, candy bars or cookies or whatever on these fence posts, and you would see the hairy hands come out and grab it, or you'd see one come out and stick his head out from the bushes. And at that property where I was at, they just walked around uncloaked all the time. I mean, it was normal to look out, and they were just walking around the yard chilling. And you would see them come out of the woods, and they'd cock their head one way and cock their head another way and watch, and they'd go over and steal it off the fence posts and go. But yeah, they do. I mean, they really will. They enjoy the smell and they enjoy it. And, you get these fruit pies and stuff. And then even the cream pies, they like it because it's got that sweetness in it.
What does Sasquatch not like eating of human food?
It's It's really individualized. I mean, really, because it's just like we are, some people like certain things. The only thing I found that I absolutely could never get them to eat were turnips. And it was accidentally that I even found that out, because I used to buy 50-pound bags of apples and 50-pound bags of carrots. And then the pony could have some and they could have some and everybody was happy. And they were out of it. And the only thing they had was this mixed bag, and it was carrots and parsnips. And that was all they had there. So I bought it. I thought, well, we'll try it. They've never had these parsnips. We'll see what happens. And I left it out for them that night. And I got up in the morning and the bag was empty. So I thought they took it all. Well, I went to go check on our Shetland pony, and they had taken every single one of those parsnips and took it over and dumped it in the pen with the pony and gave it to the pony, because they would not eat it. So they thought he would. He wouldn't eat it either. But they didn't like it. They would never, ever take that. They were just absolutely not going to do it.
What is the fascination between Sasquatch and horses? I've had listeners who owned horses who said they've gone in the middle of the night, they hear their horses stirred up, they go check up on the horses in the barn, thinking that maybe there's a coyote or a cougar or something in their barn, and they come back and check the horses. The horses are okay, a little bit disheveled, but they've got these braids in their manes and tails. And we're talking fancy braids here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they used to braid my horses. When I was a kid, I showed and I trained horses. And when I got older, my kids had Shetland ponies, and they braided all of them. I mean, I never, ever did that not happen for me. There's a difference. Everybody thinks because if the wind, gets in the mane and it turns into these wind knots or blow knots, whatever they want to call them, that's what people are saying that Bigfoots are doing. And that really is not true. When they braid it in a different way. Sometimes they will braid it straight down, but at the end of it is always a loop. And they loop and almost knot the end of it. And I've had some that braid from the bottom up. There's always that knot in it, but it looks like it's been braided from the bottom up. I've had others that have made it look like a handle, where they'll twist each side, knot it on the bottom, and the kids will literally get on. And I've caught them doing this. They'll be on the ponies and they're hanging onto it like a handle. But they thoroughly enjoy doing it. I don't know if they do so many Native American traditions. So do they do it because, the Native Americans rode the horses and the ponies or whatever? It's possible, but they are obsessed with it. The sad thing that does happen occasionally, and I only bring this up because, as we've talked before, Dave, we've talked about the fact that they're not all good. And I think it's important that everybody knows that they're not all bad and they're not all good. There's free will, and you have to accept that there's both. And they have been known to rape the mares. They really have. And it's unfortunate because primarily that's not something that they do, and it's not allowed with their people. They have their own sets of laws, and it breaks those laws, but it does happen. It has happened before. But primarily they're really good with the horses, and they're wonderful at gentling them. They can go up to a wild stallion that is so out of control, nobody can handle it. And they trance them. They use their energy and their vibration, and they put them into a trance, and they calm them, and they can get hands on them. I know several people that have had horses that cannot be calmed, and the Bigfoot come in and they instantly can calm them without any problems. But they adored my pony. They loved my pony, and I could not keep him in a fenced-in area. He tore apart every fence, every hot wire. He tried to climb hog panels. It didn't matter what you did, he tore it apart. So he was on a 250-foot boat rope, and that way I could put him wherever. He had a lean-to as well, but he could get moved around the property, and he could graze, and he thought he was free, and he was happy. And I would get up, and it was like a game of Where's Waldo. I'd get out, I'd go to where the pony was. He wasn't there anymore. They would untie him and they would move him to a part of 10 acres and retie him. And I actually have a photograph that they had taken him over to one section of the front yard. And not only had they tied him, they had the rope probably a good 8 to 10 feet above his head, tied up in the tree and wound around it. Now, there's no way a little Shetland pony can do that. And he's just standing there very bewildered. He liked them. He didn't have a problem with them. We did have one clan that the leader had come. We were doing an Indian smudge ceremony, and this other clan had come, and his kids wanted to see the pony. And so he was trying to grab him by the rope and drag him into the woods for the kids to see him. And the pony was terrified. And, you tend to react and not think real good. And I just ran over and I grabbed the rope and I'm like, no, you can't take him in the woods. And I'm grabbing this rope and this big, 12, 14 foot Sasquatch is standing in the tree line. I can see him and I'm getting pulled towards the woods like I'm on skis because I was just stupid enough to not let go of the rope. And I got drug all the way to him. And I was like, basically toe to toe, like I can see his thigh. I didn't look up at his face because, some of them are fine with you looking in their eyes, others aren't. And I thought, I don't want to be frightened where I freeze, but he's not getting his hands on the pony. And I was like, you can't touch him. You're scaring him. If the kids want to see him, they can come out of the woods and they can see him, but you can't take him in the woods. He doesn't know you. It wasn't our regular clan. And he must have thought you were the dumbest hairless human I've ever seen in my life because he almost snickered and then the rope dropped. And he just turned around and walked away. And it had nothing to do with me as a person. I think it was just he thought you are so pathetic because I could rip your head off and you just don't care. So he let it go. But yeah, they do. They're wonderful with them and they very much enjoy them. And I used to find muddy butt prints on my pony from the kids. And you would see these giant muddy handprints on them. And they would be outside and his mane, I would have just groomed him. His mane was fine. I'd walk in the house. I'd go out a couple hours later and there would be footprints on the ground where the pony was at and he would have a plaited mane. And It's a phenomenon that's everywhere. It's out of the country. It's in the country. It's everywhere. Harriet McFeely is a great one. She's done a book on the breeding where they braided the flags as well as the horses. Her experience is a little different than mine where I think she said it was only the mares, they would braid their tail. That was never my experience. If they wanted to braid a tail, they didn't care what was between the legs. They just braided the tail. However, in the group that she was, doing the research on, in her case, that's what they did. And that's very possible because each group runs it differently.
Okay. What about other farm animals? Cows, pigs, dogs, cats? Or how does the Sasquatch react around them as we got about 2.5 minutes to go here?
Actually, again, it varies on the clan and the individual. I'm very fortunate. I have mini pigs. They have never, ever tried to harm one of my mini pigs. They have never tried to hurt a dog, a cat. I have so many feral cats around here. It's ridiculous. Plus all the dogs and cats I have, they have never made an attempt to hurt one of my animals. Never. Certain clans can be. And like if you have people with farms, they'll grab an occasional pig or pick up a cow or a goat or whatever, and, as a food source. So that does happen. They have not done that with me. And I've had, all of those things there, and they've never done that with me, but it does happen.
Wow. Okay. How do they react to dogs then? I mean, I know you just mentioned it briefly there, but do they look at dogs as some sort of loud pest that's just annoying?
Yes, yeah. I mean, they've never bothered mine, but I don't allow my dogs to chase them. I don't allow my dogs to sit there and bark uncontrollably at them. I think they're fine with them unless these dogs just continue to bark and go at them and go at them. If your children are out playing and you have a coyote or a feral dog come and charge your kids, barking and growling and snapping at them, you will do what you have to do to protect your child. They are no different. They have never made an attempt on any of mine. There's been countless reports of different people that have had them reach their hand into a dog pen and take them out. But they've never hurt mine. They have taken a couple of my rescue animals when I had my animal rescue and taken them out of the pen. And I've looked out in the front yard and they're out there holding them and cuddling them. Never at any time have they ever hurt them. But if they do go after, I have seen it happen, not mine, where they had hound dogs that were cut loose in the woods and they were chasing the Bigfoot kids. And they did, the Foots ended up killing them. But it was a matter of they were actually physically hurting their children.
Wow. And is that just singular dogs or dogs who run in packs, 2 or more?
The one that they took out was actually 4 dogs combined. It depends on the aggression of the dog. If the dog is just out there, I don't normally see them try to hurt them. Again, it's an individual, but the ones I've been around have never tried to hurt them. they've played with my dogs, they've picked up my dogs, but they've never done anything to hurt them. But if you have a dog or a pack of dogs that are actively biting and snarling and growling and chasing them, they're going to protect themselves.
All right, I'll get you to hold on right there. Robin McRae, our cryptid expert tonight on the Cryptid Report, learning the traits of Sasquatch on Spaced Out Radio. It makes it so much fun trying to figure these creatures out, doesn't it? We continue with the final half hour of Mighty SOR next. Wonderful job, Robin. Wonderful job.
Oh, thanks, sweetie. I love being here. You know that. It's one of my favorite places to be.
I know you do, and we appreciate you.
Aw, thanks. So how are you doing this week?
Feeling better. The horrific forest fire smoke from down south was literally burning my eyes today and killing the sinuses.
Oh, I bet.
Throat. And so I'm just getting over a minor throat cold. And hi, Linda B. How you doing? So it's been tough, but it's good though. I mean, it's not burning around here. I'm hoping that actually I should check right now. Our little thunderstorm, lightning storm that we had here a few hours ago, I'm hoping that it didn't ignite anything in this area, because that was a pretty wild one.
Well, they've had some really bad storms going across there's nothing little about them. When they hit, they're pretty bad. And this heat wave over here in the States is just incredible. Like, nobody's getting spared. Texas is out of control. Georgia's out of control. Florida's out of control. It's hot in South Carolina. It was 97 or 98 today. And we're at the end of August.
Yeah, I hear you. The good news so far, there isn't any new fires reported in my area.
Oh, good.
But that may change overnight. Because what is this one here? I'm trying to think where that is. Is that Canham and Mahood? Oh, that's in Mahood. Yeah. Yeah, that's an hour and a half away. Oh, those are old. A couple weeks ago. All right, so that's good. Yeah. I know we were all pretty worried about what was going on, so.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you guys got to stay safe. I heard there's fires in Texas too.
Oh, fires all over the place.
Yeah, it's terrible. This heat. Everything is igniting.
Well, let's just hope that, the good part about our area here is it's starting to get cold at night.
Yeah, I wish it would here. It gets too cold with the air conditioner, and it's too hot without it. So you can't get away from it. It's staying in the 80s to low 90s at night.
Yeah, not here. We're starting to get into single digits here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's cooling off quite quick, but that's normal for August, September.
Yeah.
September, it will get down to -1, maybe -2.
Yeah.
Which is great. All right, we got about a minute and a half here.
Do. Yeah, I think there was one up on the porch earlier. I was sitting on the couch waiting for the show, and I saw like this black shadow go across the glass by the front door over by where the cat food's usually at. And it was like there for a second and then it was gone. And then when I went out there, the cat food bowl's gone. So I have a feeling it was a hit and miss on the cat food.
Yes, I do. I do mean single digits Celsius. Thank you. Uh, also, big thank you tonight to our latest super chatter. Who is it? Terry Brown joining the Space Travelers Club. Thank you, Terrence. I'll send you a personal message here, get your address, and we'll send you some nice swag. And Forrest Lewis, thank you for the third super chat of the night for you with your hat trick. I know you like getting a hat trick per night, Louis. So thank you so much. Thank you to Simon times 2, Lord times 2, Thomas times 2, Derek, Cowboys, Free Your Mind, Steven. Very much appreciate the love, everybody. Here we go. Final half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Appreciate broadcasting to you live. All the woo you can handle. My name is Dave Scott, and thank you for tuning us in. Reminder to all of you that if you want to check out our free archives, because they're always going to be free, join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Robin McCrae joins us for the Cryptid Report as we are talking about traits of Sasquatch tonight. Robin, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, of course. Thank you for having me.
I'm going to ask you a little bit of a grotesque question here.
Okay, go for it.
How come we don't find a lot of Sasquatch scat?
That is the age-old question. I know that like at my property in Michigan, they would go to the bathroom, but I did notice that a lot of times there was leaves over it or dirt over it, and not buried like a cat would bury it, but bury it just so nobody really saw it. We did find it occasionally, but not a lot. I think that maybe they want privacy. I don't really know. I didn't notice a lot of it like out in the open. I would find it, in these off the way places behind trees or whatever. They're just not like a dog where a dog's out going to the bathroom and all of a sudden it has to go and it does it right there. They are a human hybrid. They are not, this random animal out in the woods. And I think they probably make sure when they go to the bathroom, it's not open for everybody to see.
Mm-hmm.
When anything goes to the bathroom, it puts it in a vulnerable position, whether it's an animal or a human or whatever, because you are vulnerable at that time because you're busy doing your business. And so I think that they would probably tend to be maybe off a trail or, away from where people would think they were at.
Do you think they cover it up much like dogs try to, scratch coverings over their droppings or cats in a litter box?
I don't think they do that a lot. I have seen a couple of them do it, like they would put leaves over the top of it and try to cover it. But for the most part, what I've noticed is they aren't really picky about covering it up. They just tend to get in and out of the way place, so it's not as noticeable.
Okay. Now, I know when other wild animals urinate in the forest, it kind of puts a burning pattern on the grass. I've seen that with mountain lions. I've seen that with bears and deer. And dogs tend to burn grass when they use the bathroom outside. Does this happen with Sasquatch as well?
I haven't seen a lot of the burned grass, but what I have noticed is, if there's an area that they're urinating in a lot, just the acid from the urine will burn the grass. It's not a Sasquatch thing. It's just the acid from the urine would burn it if they're using the same area repeatedly. What I have noticed is like the females will, in some of the arches that are used as a directional, they'll use that and they will mark it with their own urine so the guys can find them a little bit easier, or the males will go and do it on a certain tree so that, it's kind of like a warning that this is mine. But the thing is again, they're not an animal. It's just a behavioral thing to attract each other, let each other know that they're there. And I've noticed it with that more than I have like a burned grass. But like, again, if they're going in the same area a lot, then yeah, it will make a mark on it. But that's not typically what goes on.
Where do they sleep? Do they
They
sleep on
actually,
the ground? What about these teepees that they allegedly make?
yeah.
Do they
Um,
sleep inside those?
They'll take a nap. And again, in the Ketchum study, when we did the Sasquatch genome study, there's a wonderful video of Matilda where she was just taking an afternoon nap and she was just under some trees, laying on the ground, just resting. Is that what they do at night when they go to bed? Absolutely not. They have homes that they live in. They have, whether it's a cave system, a tunnel system. I've actually been in an area where they have built their homes and it looks like a giant big bird's nest with a top on it. It was like 4 foot off the ground and the size of a 2.5 car garage. And in that area, there were several of those pods like that. That's, typically if they're going to make a nest area, or it's not even really a nest, it's what they consider a home, they're going to do. These little teepees that we see are, if they are even, they're used for a lot of things to begin with. If they're going to use them to rest in, it's a temporary shelter. These are not their permanent homes. They can use it as a blind to sit and watch people and people watch. They can sit and, watch for prey to come in there. Some of these teepees, actually, if you put your hand in the inside of it up to the top of the point, you're going to feel an energy flux in there. And they can use them for all kinds of things, from anywhere from a portal to anything they want to use it for. So there is a lot of things that they're used for. And I've also seen where some of them, there's enough members in the clan where they actually will each bring a stick and they will put it up against the tree. And because there's so many, it'll form a teepee. That is not traditionally the way it works, but I have seen that happen at times. Another thing that I've seen them do with these teepees is if they're out hunting, they'll put the kids in them. That way the kids are protected. If there's not a female, normally they keep a female with them, but and they'll put them in there to keep them safe. But when you see all these little teepees out there, do they rest in them? Absolutely. Do they people watch in them? Sure. Do they watch for other, food sources? Yeah. That is generally not their actual home. That's a temporary, that could be from one of the hunters when the hunters leave the clan to go get food. So he might make something up like that to sleep in for the night, just like you would if you took a tent. But that is not their actual home.
Okay, so how far do they travel, or do they live in the area where they are hunting?
They will travel as far as they need to. I mean, if you go out in Colorado, you see a lot of them that follow the elk herds up Pikes Peak. And everybody says, oh, they've migrated. They really haven't migrated. They don't migrate. They may go visit, they may do a lot of things, but they don't migrate. They will send the hunters of the clan to wherever the food source is to get food. If that means that they're away for a week or two, that's what they do. But that doesn't mean the whole clan is gone. It means they're, it's not any different than when you go to the grocery store. But they've got to follow that food source because of the weather, and they will. But you have to again understand that for them to travel, what would seem like a long distance to us is nothing for them. Nothing. And they will send certain members of the clan to go get food and bring it back for everybody else, but they do not migrate.
Okay, so you take, for instance, black bears or mountain lions or grizzly bears. You may only have one cat in an 8 to 10 square mile radius, and if it's a male cat or a male bear, is mainly because they're trying to steal the territory. Does this happen with Sasquatch as well?
Well, Sasquatch, I mean, they have their own areas. They do have their own territories that, that they have. And that's where you see these, the big X's. You see a regular X, that means stay out. If you see the X with the two poles, one on either side, that's a territorial marker. Not just for us, but for other Sasquatch to see and say, okay, now you're in my land. Enter with caution. You're not supposed to be here. Just like your property, your house, you know what your property boundaries are. So is it a territory? Yeah, kind of. It's just more of this is their area. This is their land, just like it is at your home. But yeah, they section it off, and certain clans are allowed and certain clans aren't. And that's why you get some of these stick structures that let the other ones know.
Okay. So the other thing is with their own patterns is when are they out? Okay. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times people will make claims about seeing this creature in the evening or at night. Rarely do we hear of daytime sightings, even though we know they happen. Is Sasquatch more nocturnal than it is during the day?
Absolutely not. No. I have seen probably 4 times the amount of Sasquatch during the day. 90% of my sightings are during the day. Like, they used to walk around my yard uncloaked, and they still do occasionally now. But when I was in Michigan, the way it was so isolated, they just walked all over. They did whatever they wanted to do. And we catch sightings of them here now. They are actually not nocturnal. What happens is at night, most of our people aren't out. And they can hide in the darkness. Does that mean they're nocturnal? Absolutely not. It means that in certain areas they feel safer moving at night. The other thing that happens at night, a lot of your prey animals are out at night. So it's a matter of convenience, and it is a matter of the individual itself. But they absolutely are not nocturnal. They normally, my patterns that I watch with my groups, they're very active during the day. They do sometimes come out at night because they have more freedom at night. We're not out there bugging them. So it's not a night thing. It's a freedom thing. They go out in the backyard at night and they're hooting and hollering and running around there like a bunch of lunatics out there because nobody else is out there to bother them. It's harder to see them with a gun or a scope or anything if it's dark out. So that's a safety thing. That's not a nocturnal thing. The groups that I would be around, they would come back in. I mean, it would slow down about 4 o'clock in the morning, maybe 5. And I would notice that they would sleep till 10, 11 o'clock. And then I'd see everybody start moving around the yard again. But I have seen more visuals of them during the day than I ever do at night. I mean, I see a few of them moving around at night, but it's not any different than us. We have people that tend to be more night owls like myself. I don't go to bed real early, and that's fine, but it's not a matter of being nocturnal. They're no more nocturnal than we are.
Okay. So why do we see them more at night? Are they a creature that doesn't have, sleeping patterns?
No, I think they do have sleeping patterns. I think it's like us where it's individualized. I think we see them more at night because we're busy all day long. Everybody has jobs. They're working. They're doing their lives. They're taking care of their families. Like I said, I have seen so many more sightings during the day. Daytime sightings are much more common than people realize. Nighttime sightings are because you're specifically out there at night looking to see if they're walking around. And they generally are. But the sleeping patterns I've noticed with the ones everywhere I've ever been is they go to bed very, very late at night, early morning, and they sleep till anywhere 10 to 12. And then they're up moving around. Like, I really and truly have seen more sightings during the day than I ever have at night. Have I seen nighttime sightings? 100% yes. But not anymore. Then during the day, the daytime is actually more active. It's just a matter of they have the cover of darkness, which opens up more freedom for them to move around without being seen. And then you also have more of your game animals that are really active at night. And why are they active at night? Because we're not out there bugging them. If we're out there, everything's hiding. When you go out and you hunt and you're hunting deer, the hunters go out really early in the morning, or they go in, right before evening when it's quiet. It's not any different with them. It's not a nocturnal thing. It's a self-preservation thing. You have less likely to be shot at in the dark when nobody can see you. And you have more freedom to come and go as you please when nobody else is out there. At my house, it was quiet during the day because the kids were at school. They just walked anywhere they wanted to, and they do that here on and off too. I mean, we've seen them multiple times just walk through the yard.
Okay, so when they go out, we always hear about researchers who talk about, this clan of three that will go out and kind of guard the area, and they travel to try and triangulate any type of prey or any type of unwanted visitor. I have been a part of that at one point with two of my friends, and it's not a fun feeling when these what they call sentries are triangulating on you. How often is this happening?
A lot more than people think. I mean, we have military, we have police officers, we have security guards. That's all that is. They monitor the property, they make sure that the safety of the clan is held, and they wander around and they patrol just like a police officer would. That's their job. Those sentries are there for a reason, and that is to protect the women and children, to protect the clan. So the areas that they live in, they are going to patrol them. If you are someone that's been there and they don't want you there, they can push a little bit of that fear into you or make you feel uncomfortable to get you to leave. For the most part, they aren't normally overly dangerous unless you get too close to where the women and children are. And again, it's a self-preservation thing. It's not where they necessarily are bad. There was a sentry that I went to this area in Michigan, and it was a new area for me. And he was right there. He was like, as soon as I walked in, I knew there was more there, but he showed himself, and of course I mind speak with him. We know that. And he said, I needed to leave. And I said, I can walk. I have permission. Earthkeeper gives me permission to walk where I need to go. And he got very quiet and he allowed me to pass. And I'm like, I'm not here to hurt anybody. I'm just here to walk. I walk in peace. And I was allowed to go in and out. And I've had certain areas where they don't want you to walk in and out. And I've had certain areas where, they're okay with it. It just depends on that clan and how much privacy they want. It's not any different than a person with their private property. It's like where I'm at, I'm out in the woods, and we get a lot of timber rattlers that are going up and down the sand on the road. So what few kids there are out here walking down the road, a lot of times they don't walk in the sand. They walk right on the corner of the grass, and they walk across the end of my front yard. Not a big deal. I could care less. They're not hurting anybody. But you have other people that if you walk on even one blade of their grass, and they're having a fit.
Okay, so how do they mark their territory from other Sasquatch or other predators or what have you?
Structures. I notice a lot of the structures, you've got your upright X's. We know that the X's laying on the ground are a welcome, but the uprights mean stay out. If you've got a pole on either side of the X, it's now their territory. They use the structures. Those structures are not just there for looks. Those structures are there as a form of communication to not only their own people in their clan, but also to other clans. They have like a base across that, means certain things, like with the X structures. And then I've noticed that some of the clans will take the basis of the structures and change it a little bit so that only the members of their clan know what they mean. But those structures are communication. They're just not something pretty to look at, although I think they're phenomenal, but they actually have meaning to them. And they will mark territories with them. They used to put big X's all around the back of my property going into the woods so that a neighboring clan wouldn't come on my property.
Wow. Okay, so we have the X's, we have the tree structures. What else are they looking for in order to mark their territory?
I think, I think we talked about a minute ago where, the females will mark certain spots to show the males. Do I think that the males will mark it? I think they will. I think that, just so that it's kind of like, okay, this is my place. I don't think they mark it as much as like a dog would, but I do believe it's possible. I think, maybe not only the structures, but the urine, they may put certain rocks in certain places to mark it. They used to go and get these big rocks and stack them at the end of my driveway. Just like, okay, this is where this starts. So I think there could be a number of ways that they're going to mark it. I had one area that they actually took a piece of wood and shoved it through a tree. I don't know how they did it. I just know they did it. And that was a major marker because the area that they did it at, they had taken logs and made it rectangular shaped. And it was almost like a church in there. And they had made certain structures in there and teepees, and the teepees they would go into and portal out. But they had this marking that they put into the tree. It was this huge piece of tree, and they literally shoved it through another tree. There's no way that could have happened overnight by itself. And they did that as a marker. So they will use whatever they can get their little hairy hands on to mark things any way they need to. We see all the time the stacked rocks. That's another marker. I've seen boulders. I've seen stacks and stacks and stacks of pine cones to mark certain areas for various things. So they will use whatever is accessible to them.
We have just over a minute to go here, Robin. And I want to say always at this time, we love it when you're here. We love it when you are interacting with us and teaching us so much about this creature that you have learned over the years. And can't wait to speak with you next week because I know it's going to be just as good.
Oh, thanks, Dave. I love you guys. I love being here, and I appreciate you having me so much. It's a lot of fun. I look forward to it.
Tell everybody where they can find your research.
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook, and I have actually had a name change. So I'm back to my maiden name, which is a good thing. So I am under Robin Haynes. If you go on Facebook, it's Haynes. If you look up Robin Haynes McCrae, which is what it used to be, it is in parentheses underneath so that you have the right one. But it's Robin Haynes, Haynes, or you can email me at RLYNNE and a period, FORESTPEOPLE@gmail.com. So you can message me or you can email me.
We love it. Robin, thank you so much for coming on
Thank you.
Space Out Radio once again, my friend.
You take care, sweetheart, and we'll see you next week.
We will always see you next weekend. We had a great show tonight. I mean, storytelling by Steve Stockton all night long, and then Robin coming in to just really bring home the bacon when it comes to learning more about the personal aspects of the creature we love to call Sasquatch. What a show. What an absolute great show. We are so thankful to bring the entertainment and the woo to each and every one of you out there in Radio Land. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home.
I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, yep, we've got room for them too. Good night. Oh, what a great show tonight. What a great, great show. And Robin, thank you for being the closer, the Mariano Rivera of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Nice save.
Well, I appreciate and love you for putting up with me every week.
No problem.
It's a lot of fun. But you have a wonderful week, and I will talk at you later.
You will, my dear. Mwah. Love you.
Mwah. Bye, babe.
Later. Robin McCrae, everybody. Robin McCrae. Close that out. Put that there. Put that there. Just put it there. And Terry Brown, thank you. Mm-hmm. 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 Why has that deleted? Delete. Delete, delete, delete. There we go. All right. We've got this downloading right now. There we go. How we doing? How we doing? Super Duke. Super Duke. Dave is 25 times 2. $25 times 2. Hi, Debbie Johns over on Facebook. Mm-hmm. Who's on tomorrow night? Paul and Cyan Hamden. We're going to talk about what it's like to talk with the Zeta Reticuli. Eye on the world. How are you? Is it your left eye or the right eye that's on the world? Very big importance here. I don't know why, but just sounds important to find out. And just for everybody to know, not that it means anything, but I know there's been questions. Yes, it is me who says hi to everyone in the chat room when I type it in. I'm the only one with the SOR powers to do so. And I do not have a producer. So if you get a hi, if you're new here wondering who's saying hi, yes, it is I. Hi, Area 51. What's happening? Hi, Les Ball Holland. How are you, buddy? Why do you need a wrench, Sapphire Elf? Tell me your argument. Are we adding any new guitars here soon, Les Paul? Oh, yes. I hear you there, Pammy Smith. Totally hear you there. But Sapphire Elf, are you going to be here every night? Have a great day, Stephen. Starfish Troopers, how you doing? Simon the Likeable, I don't know. I think it's a combination that they may have been dropped off here a long, long time ago and they've adapted to us, but I really don't know. I don't know if it's going to work, Sapphire. I don't know. I got to think about it. Lord William, or do you prefer Wilhelm? Tim, we've never blocked Lovey Love's other account. I've told her that many a times, and she doesn't believe us. She was never ever blocked. I went through the block list again the other day because I had to get Gong Show out of there, and I looked for her name. She has never been blocked. I don't know what happened to her other account. That's God's honest truth, man. She was not blocked by Random Guy or anything. It was, but I would see that, Vanessa. We've gone through this. I think it was a YouTube thing, to be blunt. I really do. Because you're not on our list. I can show you. 100% show you. Thanks, Jessica. Lord William, where's home? LA. Very cool. Come on, you silly thing. Yeah, I'm waiting for this download that just seems to be taking forever. Close that up. All right, finally. Finally. That one done. Any questions for old Davy? Any questions? While we're waiting. Do you have a production company lineup? Choose both with Merle. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Can't really talk about that right now. Hopefully, there'll be something coming up in the next few weeks, and hopefully, we'll be doing more filming here very, very soon. Very, very soon. Yes, Anne, I do check the watering holes every now and again. We had it on the other night. There's a new one that usually has elephants and giraffes, which is really cool. Eye on the World, what's up next? Oh, I got my ghost tour this weekend. And then a couple weeks, I'm hopefully going to have some visitors come up and say hello. How am I feeling? Still a little bit of a headache from my stuffed sinuses from the forest fire smoke, but that should improve because we got a real heavy rain earlier that will probably take down the smoke, which is good. It was driving me nuts. No, I don't vape THC. This one's called Ice Grape or Grape Ice, something like that. My exercise program's gone to shit. I'm not gonna lie. Not that I know of about Robin. I'm not in the States. I am Lord William. If you were to hop on the I-5 and drive straight north, I am exactly 7 turns. Exactly 7 turns. Signals, actually, from where you are. And I'm in central British Columbia, way north of you. All right, everybody. I'm going to pack this in tomorrow night. Paul and Cyan Hamden are here to talk about Zeta Reticuli. And I want to say a big thank you to Louis ×3, Simon ×2, Lord ×2, Thomas ×2, Derek, and Cowboys, and Steven, and Free Your Mind for the great super chats tonight. Very much appreciate the love and support. And thank you to our brand new subscribers into the Space Travelers Club. We have Terry Brown, Mr. Cowley, Mark Haynes, Dogface Simon, Ange from Australia, joining Paramarv, Lynn McKenzie, and Mennonite Abe. Remember, you can hit the link on the description below this show in order to support us on a monthly basis. We'd appreciate that. We're going to add some real cool stuff to the Space Travelers Club over time. There is no hurry for that, but we are going to bring more to you as time and ideas come forward. So you guys all have a great evening. I'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you for tuning in.
healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.